know that there are some people in this world that did not tune in to the Alliance Vlog podcast. Shame on you! Shame on you! My name is Ella Envy, and I'm one half of the NWA World Tag Team Champion. And I'm Kinsey Page, the other half of the NWA World Women's Tag Team Champion. And you better go listen to the Alliance Vlog, what is it called again? Podcast, period. Or you're ugly. Pretty and power approved.
Mi gente, you already know who it is. It's the radioactive Papa Danny Limelight, United Wrestling Network World Heavyweight Champion. And make sure you tune into the Alliance Vlog every week. You heard it here first. Straight from Poppy.
Hey guys, check this out. I am officially now sponsored by Dubby. Dubby is a clean energy drink made to give you focus with no crash. If you guys are like me, you're always needing a burst of energy, especially with one with no crash. Dubby contains vitamins, amino acids, a nootropic, and 150 milligrams of caffeine. It keeps me awake with no jitters, guys. Check it out. Merch link is in the bio. Dubby.
Are you ready?
Power. You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
What we've got here is failure to communicate.
I'm building an alliance. God bless the internet.
Okay, let's party. It's showtime.
It's time for the Alliance Guys podcast with your hosts Kevin Frazier, Jaden, DKM, and J. Cal.
Welcome, friends, to another exciting episode of the Alliance Guys podcast, a presentation of Alliance-Wrestling.com, your number one source for news and information for the National Wrestling Alliance. Presented to you by Dubby. Enjoy, Dubby.
Hey, Jay, Dubby actually could use a little help right now.
Why is that? What's going on?
One of their manufacturers apparently decided to just close down without any warning and shut down and leave everything at the their building shut down. So they, unfortunately, one of the new flavors that they were coming out with and developing, they're basically stuck in an empty, abandoned factory that they can't seem to get to. So if you are a fan of Dubby, this is a good chance to be able to help them out. And if you use the code support at checkout, you get a free hat. Or you could use the code Alliance Guys. Is that what it is?
You know what? I have to go double check. I'm not entirely sure right at this minute.
And get 10% off. Either way, you get some discount. So help them out and get some Dubby.
That's right. They just had a sale that they had, and I actually purchased on the sale. I got myself some more of the peach and beach, which happens to be the most purchased flavor in my household. And then, that lid's not on. That could have been a white powdery mess. It would have looked like a Herb Abrams show here. And then I have I also bought more of the Big Energy Tears, which is also a really good flavor. If you like raspberry, a blue raspberry, it's quite delicious. DKM's tired. He should try Dubby. I'm going to send you some. Would you drink?
Which flavor do you think I would like?
I really like the peach. It's delicious. So
I think you would like the what is this one? This one is the Galaxy Grenade. It's actually another good one. The only one that I've had so far that I didn't like was the Dragonade because it tasted like a lemonade and I didn't care for it. Excuse me.
If DK does Dubby, would that make him Dubby KM?
Maybe. He might be dubstepping too. Want to say what's up to everyone in the chat. I see Jeremy's doing double duty tonight. Willie Bowen is here. Terry McDermott's in the house. Luthez is here. What's up, everybody? So we have a pretty cool show for you tonight because not only are we going to talk a little bit about NWA Power and a little bit about NWA booking, but we also have an interview with one half of the 17th seed in the Crockett Cup. I'm talking about Shawn Donavan, also known as Sent to Slaughter, the tag team. They'll be a part of the he will be a part of the show later on. We did a pre-recorded interview earlier this week, and that'll be dropping after we get done talking about NWA Power. So
I know Sent to Slaughter and Shawn Donavan really well. If you guys consider yourself classic NWA guys, like old school NWA guys, like an old school wrestling fan, you will like Shawn Donavan because he's old school and he's an NWA goes. Hell, he dealt with Gino and Joe from the old NWA New Jersey, and if you know anything about that, you know that guy deserves a medal for having to deal with those shysters and criminals.
I'll say this, man. I really, the only thing I knew about Shawn Donavan before the interview was, of course, that he wrestled a Patriot at a Dangerous Adrenaline Wrestling Gladiator event. And it was a fun match. Like he did a very good job of portraying the heel, old school style heel versus the Patriot. And you know, another thing about that is the Patriot worked such a heel in that match, dude. It was just so weird to see the Patriot healing it up, but being cheered for it. But getting back to Shawn Donavan, so I had very little knowledge of who he was before the podcast. And I'll say afterwards, I was very happy to have him on. I thought it was a great conversation, and I hope to have more conversations like that in the future. And he's welcome back anytime he wants to come on.
Hey, Jay, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
When you have these guests, how come you don't have them put like a little bumper about alliance-wrestling.com or the Alliance Guys podcast like you do with Ella Envy and that? Every time you have a guest, you should have them say something.
You know, that's brilliant. It's a thought that I've had in the past that for whatever reason, whenever I have the guest on, I just don't think about it. But yeah, I totally should, because we used to do those voice drops all the time. Uh-oh. DK, you got a phone call?
Nah, it wasn't anybody.
We used to do that with Nick Madrid in the past. We had I think Lance Hoyt had a bumper for us for a bit. You know what? I think I will going forward, Jaden. That's a good call out. Thank you. And then he disappears just like that. I've got a good idea. Now I'm gonna bounce. DK, I know that you had mentioned something about Ring of Honor this week, that you wanted to discuss a little bit about Ring of Honor. I know that they have some marathon matches that they've been producing on the Honor Club shows. What did you want to talk about with that?
The concept is there too much of a quote unquote good thing, and can there be too much wrestling? And overexpose it, so to speak. And I'm pretty sure that Ring of Honor is proving the answer is yes, you can. As they have shows that often go 2+ hours. And since it's streaming, there's not necessarily any time limit on it. They can have anywhere from 12 to 15 matches. And I guess they are promoting something now where they're going to have like a 3.5 hour, 20 match show. And it's just beyond crazy to me that anybody would do something like that.
So I'm looking at the flyer right now, and I'm going to try to get it up on the screen of what you're talking about. Let me see. Can I bring it up? I know that tonight's show is packed.
19 matches. And 19 matches and not a title match among them.
Why are we supposed to care about the Ring of Honor events, their TV tapings, when they're basically just glorified AEW Dark events where the talent instead actually gets some more offense? It's the same talent that was doing AEW Dark. Most of the talent that they bring in, they're not necessarily AEW contracted guys, or guys that were working AEW Dark and losing in like 5 minutes, and now they're having competitive matches. Why are we supposed to care?
You tell me, because I don't know. I mean, they do have more, but just I have the thing before me. I mean, we have like Samoa Joe and Zack Sabre Jr. versus Christopher Daniel and Matt Sydal. Claudio Castagnoli versus Serpentino, yeah. Athena versus Promise Tony Braxton, but my understanding is it's non-title. Mark Briscoe versus DJ Drake, who I don't know who that is.
JD Drake, maybe?
JD Drake? Yeah.
JD Drake is he wrestled Pablo Esco not too long ago in Hollywood. He was part of the Workhorsemen and also the Peter Avalon group, the Wingmen in AEW.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not familiar with them, which says more about me probably than him. Oh, let me see. This is too small for my old eyes.
Well, here, let's put it up on the screen. Sorry, Jaden, you're blocked out.
All right, so I'm down at whoever versus Tony Deppen.
All right, well, here, let me help you out. I'm looking at it right now. So you've got Dralistico, which I think is a version of the Mystico original characters versus Tony Deppen. You've got Kyle Fletcher versus AR Fox. You've got Tracy Williams back in the Ring of Honor taking on Shane Taylor. You've got Ashley D'Amboise versus Danielle Camella. I think both of those women were in the NWA at one point. You have Blake Christian versus Nick Comordo. I'm not familiar with Nick Comordo. You've got Cole Carter and Zach Clayton versus Darius Martin and Action Andretti.
Who's Cole Carter? Because that name does sound familiar to me.
I'm not familiar with him either.
Jaden, do you know? That name does sound familiar.
He was a smaller blonde wrestler that is really hot on the indies.
Okay.
You've got Diamante taking on Trish Adora, who I think Trish Adora recently was at the NWA tapings. You've got Willow Nightingale, who recently won the New Japan Strong Women's Championship, although this was taped before that, so you probably won't see her with the title, taking on Hyen. Vert Vixen taking on Kiera Hogan. Sky Blue versus Miranda Elise. Rocky Romero versus Titus Alexander. Penta Zero Miedo versus Slim J. Marcus Cross, Barry Morales, and LSG versus The Righteous and Stu Grayson. Dream Girl Ellie versus Mercedes Martinez, and The Kingdom versus Ninja and Willie Mack.
That's
the Mack brothers. Cool.
Ninja Mack.
Yeah, I was trying to be silly.
No, I mean that's on the song. What is the Ninja Mack?
That's his name. That's a guy. He wrestled in I think Pro Wrestling Noah.
It's a Big Mac in Japan.
They call it a Royale with cheese in Japan.
Okay, so all you people out there who like to leave comments. I mean, what's your thought on this?
Here's what Terry McDermott said. 19
I like 3 wrestlers on the entire card. 4: Mercedes Martinez, Claudio, Shane Taylor, and I forgot my 4th, so they probably weren't that important.
Okay, so I'm going to correct you there because Samoa Joe's on the card.
Yeah, they screwed him up so much now already. And it's Nick Camarato, by the way. He's a New Jersey wrestler.
LSG, Shawn Donavan puts over LSG pretty hard in the podcast we have later. The conversation I have with Shawn Donavan.
I've seen LSG. I don't remember being unimpressed or impressed. I just kind of remember him being there.
You were just pressed.
Yeah, I was just pressed. probably with an iron. But anyway. I mean, I saw Terry say 19 matches sounds good until you realize that, again, this is going to be like a 3.5 hour show.
But it's also, but like one thing you have to realize too is like it's a live stream, not a pay-per-view. You could watch an hour of this and come back tomorrow night, watch another hour, or watch a match tonight and watch another match later. You're not under any kind of obligation to finish that show tonight, right? I mean, it's not going to expire at the end of the night, is it?
I have no idea. I don't have honor. I would assume not. But then I'm going back to the thing of how much time you still got to watch it at some point in comparison to everything else in your life.
I'll say this, and I genuinely mean it. Every time I see a poster for Ring of Honor, and every time I read the results of a show for Ring of Honor, it makes me want to subscribe to Ring of Honor Club.
No, really, it is. There is a site, a YouTube channel that pops up that will sometimes show the Ring of Honor stuff before it gets taken down.
Yeah.
And so I have watched some of their stuff, and it's not bad. Not great. It's not bad.
But that's a moral dilemma here. Let's be honest. What we watch every Tuesday night, is it better or worse than what you would watch with Ring of Honor?
Well,
Booking wise, on par. Talent wise, probably worse.
I would say what we're watching on Thursday sucks both by talent and by booking. I don't think there's any way it could be the same. But I do agree.
I'm lost. What's the actual question again?
Let me start over. If tomorrow the NWA disappeared and was gone, and we turn this into a Ring of Honor recap show, would you be happy about that or sad about that?
It'd probably be gone, except there's nothing that draws me to want to watch Ring of Honor.
Okay, fair enough.
I mean, here's the thing, based on what I thought you said. In ring action, the NWA has talent.
100% I agree.
And they can put on some really good in-ring matches.
I also agreed.
The booking sucks.
100% agreed.
ROH, they have a lot of matches. A lot of them are good in ring. Some of them suck in ring. And there's only like 2 or 3 high-level storylines that are at least of any interest.
So
a lot of the lower level matches are just kind of short-term. You know, here they got mad at each other last week, so here they are fighting this week. And sometimes there's not anything. It's just
I'm looking at the card for tonight, this big marathon of matches, right? And I'm looking up and down the poster, and it's either I really like that talent or think that talent is good, or I'm unfamiliar with that talent. Like, honest opinion, and I want Jaden to chime in too. Zack Sabre Jr., is he a good wrestler or a bad wrestler? Does he suck?
He relies too much on flippy stuff. He actually can be a very good wrestler.
Are we talking about Zack Sabre Jr. or are we talking about somebody else? Because Zack Sabre Jr. is mostly a technical wrestler.
He does a lot of the flippy stuff too. But when he's wrestling, he's amazing.
Because I think like a dream match for me would be Bryan Danielson versus Zack Sabre Jr. That to me, that'd be one of probably the greatest matches ever. And that he's in the ring with Samoa Joe taking on Matt Sydal, who, yeah, I know he does flippy stuff, but I don't think he sucks. And Christopher Daniels. Again, Christopher Daniels is one of those guys who I really do appreciate. I know he's getting a little bit older in years, but he could still kind of go. That match to me sounds like a win. I think I would enjoy that match. I look at Claudio. I'm not very familiar with Serpentico. I'm not. Serpentico, thank you. But I know who Claudio is, and I haven't seen him have a bad match. Athena, I think,
you didn't watch any of his WWE stuff, did you?
I did not watch much of his WWE stuff, but what I did see, I normally thought, hey, he's pretty good. Even when he was in the ring there with Jack Swagger, I thought, that's a good tag team.
Yeah, he actually elevated anybody he was in the ring with. The only problem is I don't think he ever wrestled against Khali, so that's probably why his record's still pretty good.
Yeah.
Almost, and all those type of people.
Willie said, hey, if you guys are taking suggestions, I'll take a United Wrestling Network podcast. Hey man, we're almost there. You listen in on Wednesdays, and Jeremy gives you a good rundown of what's happening on those 3 brands of the United Wrestling Network. We actually do pretty well, I think, in covering United. And then Dave Scooby brings up Ring of Honor needs to actually separate their talent from being on I think he meant AEW TV. Make it almost a must-watch. Can't see them anywhere else. Would rather have quality over quantity. I agree with what Dave Scooby just said, too. I think maybe we all do.
Well, theoretically, the rumors are that that's what Warner Brothers Discovery wants.
I think that's a smart business decision.
And it's also kind of, we talk about brand splits and whether there should be brand splits or not be brand splits or not ever. One of the reasons that sometimes if you have both shows in your television world, like Turner, Warner Brothers Discovery, they kind of like the idea of the brand split because then it can make both shows
special.
Well, in like you said, kind of that must watch. And so supposedly Warner Brothers doesn't want AEW wrestlers wrestling on other indies. They don't want them wrestling in ROH, which is a separately owned company. And they kind of want the TV show split so that, if I'm going to watch CM Punk, the only place I can watch CM Punk is going to be on this show. And if I'm going to watch Kenny Omega, the only place I can watch Kenny Omega is on that show. Now, I know that's an easy split. And it very much seems that Collision is what I would call the AEW disgruntled group. People who haven't been happy with their booking or...
You know who I saw that I'm super excited that's going to be on Collision? I'm very, very excited to see my old pal Scorpio Sky is going to be back on Collision.
And I was just wondering what would have become of him.
I haven't spoken to him in quite some time, and I thought there was an injury. I mean, I can't speak for any official business. He had 2 runs with the TBS Championship, and then he was just gone. And I think he had some nagging injuries, so I think they gave him time. They kind of wrote him out of the storyline, and then they just haven't brought him back. And I think it's the same story with guys like Miro that you haven't seen on TV. It's like they've been waiting for that opportunity to bring him in, but like at some point you just got to bring these guys back. And if it's Collision, I mean, to me, Collision looks like it's going to be a fun show on Saturday nights. I know I'm in the minority here, but you're bringing back some talents that I actually enjoy, like Scorpio Sky. Heck yeah, I'm all about that. Supposedly.
Thunder Rosa's advertised for the show.
Right, that's where I was going.
But Thunder Rosa is also supposedly still out with her back.
Yeah.
So I don't know if she'll be wrestling on the show or if she'll be filling another type of role.
See, there's where if Thunder Rosa, she has potential to be something of an attraction if, was presented as such. If she can't wrestle, then maybe she should be a manager.
100%.
Oh, yeah.
She's got the chops for it. And what, part of it's kind of fun because not only was I a fan of Thunder Rosa before she ever stepped into AEW or even the NWA for that matter, I've got to witness her maturation process. Her and the Twisted Sisters, right? Her and what was her name?
Holodead?
Yes, thank you, Holodead. I got to watch them in Southern California. From afar, I watched them in Stardom. No, it wasn't Stardom. Maybe it was Stardom. Got to watch them in Japan. They brought the NWA. They took the men's tag team titles. They won them at a wrestling promotion in California, Northern California, not Southern California. NWA Vendetta Pro Wrestling. They won their tag team titles, which were rebranded the NWA International Tag Team titles, and then defended them in this women's only wrestling promotion. It was quite interesting, to say the least, that they got to represent the NWA internationally. And then, of course, Thunder Rosa does come into the NWA, and we were there for that ride. She was on this podcast. We got to talk to Thunder Rosa. That was really cool, too. And then to see her go on to bigger and better with AEW, and then the injury. And I still, I get my fix of Thunder Rosa when I listen to Busted Open Radio, and you kind of hear the maturation of who she is as a person. She's not the same Thunder Rosa she was in the NWA. She's not the same person she was tag teaming with Holodead. And it'll be interesting to see what's next for her whatever direction they go with her, whether it be in ring or as a like you said, DKM or Jaden, I'm not sure who said it, as a manager. I think that'd be pretty cool too.
Yeah, and if she does get back in the ring, it'll be interesting to see if her style changes. One of the reasons she probably has a back injuries is she's a very stiff worker, and I know others have complained about that. I grew up in Texas, where if you weren't stiff, you had shit beaten out of you.
Yeah, the wrestling the Von Erichs was like being in a work street fight.
Yeah. I think Jim Cornette once called it a friendly street fight. You're all friendly with each other, but man, you felt it afterwards. And even One Man Gang, talking about people that he had a difficult time in the ring with, brought up Kevin Von Erich. And he loves Kevin Von Erich. Kevin Von Erich's a great guy. He goes, man, you just never knew where he was going to come from.
Willie wants to remind us that Thunder Rosa was also on WoW as Serpentine, and I believe she also was a similar role on Lucha Underground too.
Probably. But yeah, it was just anyway, getting off track on that. My point is, stiff work does lead to more injuries, and I just wonder if she would adapt her style a little bit, just with those injuries and not having a back that's as strong probably and everything. She's very talented, so I would imagine I would still enjoy it, but it's a curiosity question for me.
I've never heard Greg Valentine, Ronnie Garvin, Wahoo McDaniels, or Johnny Valentine get many injuries.
Well,
they work very stiff.
They work very stiff, but I want to watch how I say this, because Thunder Rosa isn't flippy in the way that we think of as flippy today, but she certainly would be flippy and high impact, different than Ronnie Garvin or Johnny Valentine was back in the day. And there's still a lot more working of stuff even with them, except for like when they wrestled the job guys on TV. Their goal was to avoid injuries. I think that's something that's lacking in quote unquote modern wrestling.
So anyway, getting back to the original topic, too much wrestling. I agree. If I had to sit through that at the TV taping, like, I might be a little disgruntled. But I also would say this, like, if I go to a Championship Wrestling from Hollywood TV taping, I'm usually there about 2.5 hours. When I went to the NWA TV taping, I was there for about 3 hours. When I went to Ring Warriors television taping, I was there for about 3 hours. And of course, if you go to a Raw television taping or SmackDown, it's usually about 2 or 3 hours as well. So to me, the time spent watching live is no different than what it would be most other wrestling shows. The added,
I will say there's a slight difference being anywhere live,
sure,
to watching on TV. But, and I want Jaden to chime in on this for sure, but I've worked with 3 different promoters here, some more than others.
And the NWA. Don't forget, you were NWA representative for a while.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for my paycheck. Inside joke, people. Anyway, one of the things that they always say is the sweet spot is 2.5 hours.
I agree with that.
You really don't want to go much less, and they go, you certainly don't want to go over 3. They go, because the crowd does wear out.
That's 100% true.
And we see that in some of the tapings where, you can tell when you're kind of on the last hour and the crowd's out there just going. The only time that doesn't happen is when they're that way all through. All the way through.
Yeah.
Like in Florida. But Jaden, what are your thoughts?
I've been part of events that have gone 2 hours, and I think it's too little. I've been in part of events where it's usually 7 matches, about 2.5, 245, if it's a really good card. And that seems to be, I agree, a sweet spot. I've been on and to events and matches where 19 matches in 4.5 hours. But I've also been to ECW events that were supposed to start at 8, started around 9:30, got done around 2 o'clock in the morning, and I was just as energetic and ready to rock and roll after that than, when I got there. So
cocaine does not count.
What was that?
Using cocaine does not count.
I didn't need cocaine. First of all, the other wrestlers used it all up. Second of all,
that's probably true.
Second of all, no, it was just pure adrenaline. When you went to an ECW event, it might have been that long, but it didn't feel it. So that's part of the thing too. Sometimes your perception of time determines how it is.
And I suppose a lot also depends on who you're marketing to and everything. I mean, obviously, EC Adult was a very
niche.
Well, it was a niche crowd. It probably somewhere around college student to early 30s were, the bigger, more energetic fans of it. You didn't take grandma and you didn't take 8-year-old Billy Bubba, to the ECW show.
Unless you're a bad parent.
Or they want a Coke. Anyway. But outside of that, you didn't. And so, yeah, that's more, as the old saying goes, that's more the exception that proves the rule than the rule itself. The rule itself is there's only so much. And even with this, I mean, let's remembering that this isn't like a one-time special thing and they normally have an hour show. This is, they put out 2.5 hours on most weeks. And now they're extending it by another hour. So it's even if you like everything, I think you can just get tired. And I think, especially with that thing going on in your life, Jay never bought the last pay-per-view, Jay. And there's too much going on even to watch it, review it, and talk about it. So
I am going to buy Crockett Cup. No doubt about it. I will buy it. I won't be on with you guys that following week, but I will be watching it for wherever I'm at. We were supposed to go to Lake Tahoe, beautiful rustic Lake Tahoe, and then we found out there's going to be thunderstorms. So now my wife is talking about going to Mexico. So I don't know where I'm going to be the week that you guys will be reviewing Crockett Cup, but wherever I'm at, I will definitely be watching it, and maybe I will record a clip or two and send it to you guys so you can put it in the podcast. I don't know.
I hope that doesn't mean I have to watch it.
I was going to say, wait a minute, we're supposed to watch it?
Well, I mean, you guys don't have to watch it. You know what we could do is a role reversal and ask the other Alliance guys to cover the Alliance guys podcast, and then just DK, you have to watch United Wrestling Network, and Jaden has to watch or do some fantasy booking for the NWA, and then I don't know. I don't know. I'm trying here.
Speaking of fantasy booking, we were talking earlier before we started the podcast about Star Wars, and we were talking very nerd stuff. And one of the things that I do instead of going to sleep is I sometimes fantasy book, not just wrestling, but fantasy book television shows that I enjoy. And I actually buy these instruction booklets and these, not instruction booklets, but these like information booklets and encyclopedias of Star Wars and Star Trek, just so I could have more information and properly fantasy book how I would run if I was in charge, if I had the power to run Star Wars if it was a real entity, and run Star Trek if it was a real entity, and other, facets out there. So fantasy booking is something I do not just for professional wrestling, apparently, but I do it with Star Wars, Star Trek, and Thundercats and Transformers and other things that I've grown up on.
I kind of do the same thing from time to time too.
It's what I do when I try to go to sleep. Instead, I think that you don't know how many times I've rebooked various versions of the Jim Crockett promotions and the UWF and the NWA and the Super Class 3 and stuff like that.
How many of our people in the chat watch The Office? DK, do you watch The Office?
I've seen episodes here and there. I never really got into it.
Jaden, you watch The Office, right?
Yeah, I've rebooked myself with Ellie a couple times.
Yikes!
Aaron. Sorry, her real name's Ellie, but
I knew who you're talking about. There's an episode where they were in the parking lot because there was a fire, and they're like, "Okay, who would you do in The Office?" And Michael goes, "Oh, I do that all the time before I go to bed." Just makes me laugh. That's all.
I don't drink enough for some of this stuff.
You should. It's great, man. It's fun.
What I heard is GK needs to drink more.
DK was coughing. He wouldn't be coughing if he had some elixir to drink.
Yeah, I know about those elixirs. I also know about how big the thimble is.
Really big. Okay, so
all right. People raise their hand if they know what I'm talking about with the thimble.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
It's from the Beverly Hillbillies.
I love Granny's elixir personally. I've had some of that stuff. It actually does make me cough more sometimes when I'm drinking it, but I feel really good after.
Yeah, Granny never drank more than the thimble full at any time, and everybody knew it. And then one time when everybody's gone, she takes out her drinking thimble, and it's like this big old giant
shot glass.
No, I mean like a soup bowl.
By the way, Kathleen Kennedy is the Tony Khan of Star Wars.
That's good.
Yeah, we've actually had that conversation before, and she is crazy.
Look, this isn't a Star Wars conversation, and I'll make this real brief. I know there's some people out there who do not like this Star Wars that's out currently, and I get it. But when I was 6 years old and I finished watching Return of the Jedi, and I absolutely loved that movie, and I thought, all right, more please. And there was nothing. Now I could turn on CBS cartoons and maybe get to see the droids, or a few years later on ABC get to watch the Ewoks, but that was it. And then there was a return to Endor with a girl that looked oddly familiar. She kind of looked like Drew Barrymore, and it was the Ewok Adventure, and I got that, but there was no lightsabers, there was no stormtroopers. It wasn't Star Wars, but it was something, right? And I ate it up and I said, thank you, can I have some more? And when they had the sequel to that, I also watched it, enjoyed it, and would ask for more. I was there for the opening night when Star Wars, the prequels came out, the Phantom Menace. I sat front row, third seat in from the screen, and I was happy to have it because it was more Star Wars. And when the Star Wars movies came out, even in the last couple of years, it might not have been the story that I would have written, but I was happy to have it because it was Star Wars and something that I grew up and I cherished, and I still enjoy it. And when the Book of Boba Fett came out, I watched it. And when obviously when The Mandalorian came out, I watched it. And I'm currently watching Andor as we speak, but every single Star Wars movie I've watched in the theater when given the opportunity. I've watched the shows. I watched the animations on Disney Plus, the Clone Wars. Mainline this directly into my vein. I will watch anything Star Wars related, and I will continue to do so, regardless of what's woke or not woke. Whoever's Mary Sue or not, give me more.
I don't
All
think
right,
how you feel.
Jay back.
What's that?
Jay back. Feed you more Star Wars, apparently.
Yep. Apparently, yeah.
I mean, look, I never had a problem. I grew up on the original trilogy, and I never had a problem. I never had a problem with the prequels. I know a lot of people of my generation didn't like the prequels. I was fine with them, and I actually think Revenge of the Sith is one of the best Star Wars movies out there.
I think people had a problem with Jar Jar
great.
Binks. I think the only problem was Jar Jar Binks. I wasn't a huge fan of the pod racing scene in Phantom Menace because it did nothing for me. I'm not a big racing fan, but I get the appeal of it. And Jar Jar Binks, again, wasn't something that I was like, oh, that's a great character, but I understand what they were going for. And that's how I kind of look at the movies. It's like, okay, there's a lot of stuff that I like. What appeals to me? Like, there's some characters that won't appeal to me. They never will appeal to me, but they can be a part of the story. And to answer Willie Bowen's question, yeah, I did like the Han Solo Adventures. I thought that was great. I kind of was hoping they'd get a sequel. I liked Rogue One very, very much. Probably my favorite Star Wars movie of all. And I would love to have a sequel to that. But unfortunately, they all died. Spoiler alert.
You got a prequel?
Yeah. With Andor, yeah. Yeah, you're right.
Can we be the Rebel Alliance guys instead and talk about Star Wars?
We totally could.
We probably
Don't freaking tempt me, man, because I'm this close with this NWA booking. I'm this close.
I might actually do my homework and talk about stuff that I've paid attention to.
Well, let's use that as the segue because I know Jay's wanted to talk about NWA booking, and I've been trying to avoid it for the last 43 minutes. But Jay, what are your thoughts on the NWA booking?
Luthez on our Star Wars talk. I got laid in high school. Hey, man.
I got laid in junior high. What does that have to do with anything? So,
I was a grown ass man. I don't know about you guys. I still haven't gotten laid.
You have 3 kids.
You have 3 kids.
Oh, is that what that is? Is that what that means? Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And then paid. He thought he was getting paid for that.
Now I have to tell this story because of Jay. It's all Jay's fault.
All right, let's go, and then we'll get to booking.
Vicki Lawrence. Everybody know who Vicki Lawrence is from Mama?
Let me guess. Did Mama take your cherry, TK?
No. Vicki Lawrence was she once had one of those daytime talk shows, just like all the others.
Yeah.
Was it Eunice?
Yes. Anyway.
And Franny?
No. But anyway.
What was Betty White's character? Mary Sue or something? Betty Sue?
I don't know. Yeah.
It was Iola. That's it. I figured it out. It was Iola.
No, that was you. Anyway.
It's that pink dress that really did it for you. She crocheted you some stuff.
That was you.
Well, I know that show, by the way.
That show hasn't been on like 30 years, and you're still
alive.
About it.
But anyway, there was a story where she was talking about her parents sitting down and telling her and her younger sister about the birds and the bees, so to speak. And so, they had the conversation, and the girls were like, okay, whatever. And she said for years, she thought her parents had sex twice. Once to get pregnant with her and once to get pregnant with her sister. And so it wasn't until she was a teenager that she realized it was still an ongoing thing in the house.
I'm telling you right now, my kids think it only happened 3 times. That's for sure.
Well, they might be right, but that's another story altogether.
Zing! All right, let's talk about booking.
Hey, what do you think of NWA booking?
Talk about getting screwed. That NWA booking has been dog shit. And I'm going to just come out and say it because,
but they don't book for you, Jay.
They don't. But
apparently they don't book for anybody to watch it either.
Well, no, see, and I'll correct what Billy said. Like, he never said, I don't book the show for the fans. He just says the fans won't book the show. And, I don't have a problem with that, honestly. I don't think that's a bad thing to say. And I know a lot of people have taken that and been like, well, look, he doesn't care. He doesn't care. And I think that's where we're getting confused on. It's that he does care, right? But I just don't think he knows what the fans want. And I think that's the problem. He's booking a show that he's like, I'm not going to cave to what fans want. I'm going to book the show. the way that I want to book it. But what I think he doesn't understand is that his booking is dog shit.
You know, there's
Can you use other words like dog? Because, you know, that definitely is a negative connotation to Dangerous Drone Wrestling Gladiators. How about the drizzling shits, maybe?
horse. We'll go with horse.
Maybe Taco Bell shits?
No, that's disgusting.
Let's roll back on the S word just because I don't want to get demonetized. Let's go.
I said ships, as in like the stuff that, like the starships that you build out of Legos.
Like Ships Ahoy.
Yes. Exactly.
Yes.
I did see that. Someone shared that article with me, and I kind of read through it. I remember a long time ago, there was an old saying that if you, how did it go? But something to the effect of, if you book what the fans want, then you're just becoming a fan.
That is like an idiom of like sports management, where like if you are the general manager of a sports team and you pick your players by the way the fans tell you to pick them, trade this guy, sign this guy, release this guy, then you're going to end up in the stands with the fans. And I get that premise. I do, because you know what? If I was running a wrestling show, if this was the JCal Wrestling Federation, you know what? I would want to book storylines that I thought would be entertaining, and so, yes, I'm trying to appeal to myself. And my hope is that my stories are so entertaining that you are also going to enjoy them. And look, I'm not saying that everything Billy has done has been bad, because there has been a lot of good. And before the show, I point blank asked DKM, tell me what the NWA has done good booking wise. And the second answer that he came up with was
Camille.
No, that was the first one. The second one was Ricky Starks.
No, the first one was.
If we were wondering if Aldis was booked his own stuff or not.
Like I don't know how much Aldis was involved, but some of the Aldis storylines were, I thought, booked well.
I see. I didn't like Aldis once Power started because everything became so convoluted. Remember, like, oh, you have to beat me, or else you never get a shot at the title again. Or if you don't win, you have to give all the fans their money back. Stuff like that to me seems like that's bad booking. And I don't know if that was Aldis, if that was Billy, if that was Lagana. I don't know.
The money back thing is old school. That's been done for 20 years before Aldis was born.
Sure.
And the never getting a shot again has actually been done in wrestling well before that. So it was just recycled stuff, and who knows what that is there. I don't necessarily think it meant was Aldis doing it.
The never getting a shot again was used by both WWE and AEW very close to that.
Yeah.
And that was part of the problem. It's been used by AEW again. I'm not AEW and WWE again. So,
well,
but my thing was, I thought overall, Aldis, I could at least get interested in Aldis' matches, and I thought some of the, I like you, I didn't like the garbage, and I openly complained about it. But
again, we're not talking about the matches and how they're played out. We're talking about the booking.
Well, I'm talking about storyline into the matches.
That's what we're talking about, because so. All right, for example, on tonight's episode or Tuesday night's episode of Power, most of us saw it Wednesday night because of a production flub, but you had newcomer Blake Bulletproof Troop, who is a phenomenal athlete, and I think he's got a bright future ahead of him, and he was in the ring with Talos, the 7-foot monster Talos, and you kind of put yourself in a no-win situation here, because someone's going to look good and someone's going to look bad with this loss. But the problem is you put Talos, who he's a giant. He's a 7-foot man. He's an attraction. That guy, if booked correctly, could be a star on your show. But he shouldn't be in the ring with somebody who's going to give him a competitive match. Not right now. He should be in the ring with Eric Jackson. He should be in the ring with Rose. I can't remember the guy's name, the guy that had the rose. He should be in the ring with your enhancement talent, because he shouldn't be taking a loss in his third or fourth appearance in the NWA. And yet that's how they booked him. So leading right up to the show, you have a guy who has an amazing look. He's freakishly tall. He's got a certain thing that most wrestlers won't have, and you freaking buried him. Not just one time, but also because Talos and Daisy Kills lost to Murdoch and Knox already. So that guy's already gotten 2 losses while being on TV. What's so intimidating about a giant that loses? Nothing. Anything remotely special about him is now gone out the window. They did the same damn thing with Judas. They brought him in and they had him in that battle royal where he looked really cool and he won the battle royal and then got humiliated by Adonis 2 times. Then had to beat James Storm and couldn't beat him. And all this just made him look like a goof. And now you've got Judas with, I think it's actually kind of an interesting tandem, but Judas is teaming with Max the Impaler in the Crockett Cup, as opposed to Judas being a threat to the World's Heavyweight Championship. Instead of Judas being a threat to the national title, you took something that had all this mystique and mystery and you blew it. And they did the same thing with Talos. And I'm not saying that Talos is this amazing athlete. I'm not. He's decent. He's good. But for Christ's sakes, man, he's not. You don't have 7-foot giants walking into that building every single episode. And you took something that could have been unique and special, and you fizzled it out. Why not build that guy up to fight Tyrus and have Tyrus beat the 7-foot giant? It would have been a perfect way to make Tyrus, put him in a simple match where he couldn't look bad because he's fighting another giant. It's what it is. They blew it. They absolutely blew it. Now you ruined Talos. You put him in this Crockett Cup with Daisy Kills. They'll probably be eliminated in the first round. And then I hope he never comes back. Because if he does, it's not going to be anything meaningful ever again.
I really haven't liked Talos since he was animated by Ray Harryhausen.
Fair enough.
If anybody understands that one, let me know.
Boy.
Do you guys follow me though? Do I sound crazy here?
Let me tell you.
You 100% sound crazy, but you're also correct.
And for me, this goes back to a problem I have that they do in wrestling nowadays, and it just doesn't work anymore. And this is across the board. Almost all promotions do this now. And that's the monster. And the monster, the giant, the whatever you want, it doesn't work anymore. You bring this guy in, he's a mid-carder at best. You either push him too quick and you have, whatever his name was in WWE. The tall Indian guy.
Kali,
the great Kali. Where you're putting the world title on him and, the guy can barely walk.
Almost.
Tyrus.
Tyrus, yeah.
That's Tyrus today. Or like almost now, they keep trying to do him as this big, devastating giant and he's lost every major match he's had. He's lost to Seth Rollins, which was in his best match. And of course, and people kept talking like, oh, he's improved so much. No, Seth Rollins just knew how to work with him. Because the other matches he had were Bobby Lashley, where he basically lost 2 out of 3. And the one he did win, I think there was interference in.
Well, I mean...
And he lost to Brock Lesnar. And, these aren't guys that are going to give you amazing matches. There are matches where almost dominates them and then loses. And so I think you got to win over AJ Styles. But that was, they haven't really.
Oh, you froze. Or maybe I'm frozen.
Around.
Oh no, you killed DK. Oh, there he is.
But you gotta protect them.
Yeah, well, and that's
and it's hard nowadays. Back in the day with Andre the Giant, one of the things that helped Andre the Giant was Vince Sr. He was signed to Vince Sr.
Mm-hmm.
But Vince knew, I can't use this guy every day. And he goes, I can't use him all the time. What do you do with him? And so he said, he called the other promoters, because that's back when promoters talked to each other. Not necessarily like each other, but they talked to each other. And, said, hey, let me send Andre out there for a few weeks. And, you can use him. And so he could come in. He was a special attraction. And I didn't see him everywhere. Well, now I see this thing everywhere. And even Andre, when you watch, once he becomes a WWF Vince Jr. guy, and he's using him exclusively, it was like 2 years until he finally had to get pinned by Hogan. And then, he was actually lost a lot after that.
So kind of going back to what I was saying, and Talos is just one piece of all of this, but like, it's just what you said, you've got this forging relationship with AAA. They're sending talent for the Crockett Cup. We sent talent to the World Cup. We met in the middle in Mexico City at Foro Sol. He's a guy that you could have sent to Mexico for a couple of dates to represent the NWA. And maybe you don't send him by himself. Maybe you send him with Chris Adonis, or maybe you send him with a Tom Latimer, or maybe you send him with an EC3, right? And you could have had him in that capacity where, you're right, he wouldn't have to be on TV as much. There's Joe Kazana Promotions, that's the sister affiliate right there of the NWA. You could have sent him there to do a few shows just to keep the guy, visible, but not necessarily on the roster. These are things you could have done with Talos, where had he not just done the job to Blake Bulletproof Troop, still would have been fine. And I want people to take a step back. I'm not putting down Blake the Bulletproof Troop at all. The match itself was, you had an ultimate fighter basically wrestling a big dude, and he knew how to take him down. He should, but that match should have never been put into place. Bulletproof Troop should have been beating up somebody who was a nobody, a no-namer. Or at the very least, go ahead.
I was going to say, and he's somebody else who hasn't really been booked that well.
Well, no, and he hasn't either, but neither have the Savages. And that's the bigger problem here. When Billy says, I'm not going to book the show, I'm not going to cave to the fans' will on this. I don't need you to, Billy. I really don't. I don't need you to book this show for me. I just want you to book it better. Because when I look at this show, and yeah, you know what? You did a great job with Camille. I think Camille is exactly where she should be. You know what? I'll give you credit for La Rebellion. I like La Rebellion as a tag team. I think now is about the time to take the belt off of them, but they had a hell of a run. Great job. I'm going to say Kerry Morton, whether it's all him or all you or a combination of the both. But Kerry Morton as a junior heavyweight champion has been entertaining. Storyline-wise, watching Adonis pursue the world title left a lot to be desired. Having EC3 as the national champion, again, a lot left to be desired. Having Tom Latimer win the TV title, too early to tell. I think he's a great guy. I think he's could do some good things, but we're only 1-2 victories into his title run. You look at the women's the television champion, Kenzie Page, too early to tell. The women's tag team division, I feel like they've been hot-shotting that title so much that it's hard to get locked into it. And then tell me another talent who's gotten over. Tell me another talent who's like, can't miss. I've got one, Silas Mason. Tell me another.
I don't think they booked Silence Mason to get over. I think he got over despite the booking.
That you might
be Toyo too.
That might be accurate. I did see. It was Jammin' Music Man who asked me to interview Kratos, and I've heard a lot of people say good things about Kratos. Kratos hasn't been booked well in the NWA. Blunt Force Trauma has not looked good. Odinson has not looked good. Like half the teams in the tag team tournament have not been booked very strong.
Why would I care about Daisy Kill?
Right. You've done that. He's done nothing to make me care about him.
Hell, the Fixers got themselves over, and the booking got them unover.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. I agree with the concept I agree with the concept of you don't let the fans take over the booking. You know, you don't go, oh well, today they would have put the world title on question mark if they had done that. But you still need to listen to the fans, and there's a fine line between those. And so we'll call upon our expert Jaden here. You know, how do you listen to the fans but not, book by popularity opinion poll?
Here's the thing. A really good booker doesn't listen to the fans at all. A really good booker makes the fans never knew they always wanted something to happen.
Yeah.
So, again, the really good booker makes the fans think this is something that they want, not this is what the fans want, so that's why they give it to them. I think the WWE in some cases has gotten too much into the indie mindset, internet loudmouth, smart booking. And that's why wrestlers I don't think actually could get over or should be getting over what the fans love, the smart mark fans love, but they're not really drawing any money in the WWE. And that's a lot of what AEW's problem is. There's a very select number of people that want to watch that, and the people that like that really like it. But the problem is it's not getting people who don't like it to watch it. And that's the part with growing wrestling. You need to put together an adventure so well put together when it comes to booking wrestlers, booking talent, booking cards, so well done that they want to see it and more people see it. I'm going to use the first 5 seasons of Game of Thrones as an example. Very, very well put together, well booked, well character driven program. And then the people who thought they knew what they were doing and were in charge and royally screwed it up. And that's not the words I was originally going to use. And it became garbage. And I think that's it, because a lot of those things that weren't good about the last 3 seasons of the Game of Thrones, last 2 seasons, especially last season, most of all, is it was done for controversy instead of logic. It was done to shock instead of done to tell the right story. It was done to put focus on somebody who was a very good character, but wasn't the right character to be what in position that she was put into. And it was only because they were trying to be different. And sometimes, honestly, as much as it's hard for people to admit this, the expected answer is sometimes the right answer.
What?
The problem is you have to make it compelling enough that people want to see the expected answer.
How do you handle a situation like Roman Reigns? And let me finish this whole thing before I get going, before I get a response. How do you handle a situation where, like Roman Reigns, who they were pushing as a face? It was obvious that they wanted to get him over as a face, and he just wasn't getting over to the extent that he needed to be to become the star, the face, the whatever you want to call it. And, he goes away from due to the pandemic. He comes back. Even his battle with cancer they had earlier only had him a real face for a short amount of time once he came back from that. But then he comes back as they bring him back as the heel, and he becomes exactly what they always wanted him to be as the face. And so, where is that line? Where do you go? I do think there are times you got to listen to the fans, and I think Roman was an example of that. It didn't matter how they would have done storylines or whatever. They just weren't willing to accept him at that moment in that form.
Well, that's the problem. The fans wanted him for a long time. The problem was the people in charge didn't know why he was getting over the way he was and how he was getting over the way he was. They did not understand what made him money making. And in the process, they turned him into the Bob Backlund of the Shield. See, Bob Backlund was a great wrestler. Bob Backlund, believe it or not, has a lot of personality. But the problem was Bob Backlund is the all-American, good for goody two-shoes, howdy-doody boy, was not going to get over, especially in contrast to superstar Billy Graham, the late Billy Graham now. You know, Billy Graham revolutionized what it was to be a heel champion in the WWF. He was the only real heel champion that you had. And the fans wanted to love him. Here's the thing, though. They needed to make Billy Graham a good guy, a baby face, instead of putting the championship on Backlund. But they didn't need to make him all of a sudden kiss babies and throw and handshake everybody and be everybody's best friend and golly geez and turn him into the Bob Backlund version of Billy Graham. And he sure didn't need to be Kung Fu Billy Graham. What they needed to do is understand what got him over and adapt it to what they're trying to do. As hard as it is to believe, for a very short time, Ole Anderson got over huge as a face. But Ole Anderson did absolutely nothing different as a babyface than he did as a heel. The only thing is now he was beating up the people they didn't like. So that's why Ole Anderson got over so well as a babyface.
Having issues. Sorry.
So what they needed to do with Roman Reigns is decide what got him over as part of the Shield and decide right now and there that they, no matter what, they wanted Daniel Bryan to win that Royal Rumble. And no matter what he was going to do, especially when they were giving him doing the succotash line and the other bull crap baby face, don't understand again what got him over, don't understand the audience, don't understand how to make him a money draw. They just gave him the stupid one-liners and made him a goofy non-factor, and then they put him against Daniel Bryan, who the fans wanted and they anointed and everything like that. And that's just it. Sometimes the fans sabotage what the promotion wants because what they want. Just Question Mark's a perfect example of sabotage. That guy should never have been anything other than he was a joke. He was stupid. And the fans decided they were going to sabotage and make him their own thing. And that's right there why you don't listen to the fans. Because the Question Mark was never going to be the heavyweight champion. It should have never been national champion or tag team champion or whatever else they were going to plan on doing with him. It was a joke, and it was just some stupid guys who decided that they wanted to troll and get him over. And you guys, the problem is that energy bought the rest of the people who don't necessarily were planning on doing that. The energy turned everybody else to that stupidity.
And let me ask you a question, Jaden. What are your thoughts on Dirty Dutch Mantel?
Very good wrestling mind, very good wrestling promo, pretty good wrestler. Had a great run in Memphis for a while. Really basically revolutionized and saved Puerto Rican wrestling as his booker.
He recently had Aaron Stevens on his podcast, and I only know this because Heebs brought it to the Discord. If you guys want to check out our Discord server, the link is in the bio. Excuse me, the link is in the video description. But he brought that to the chat, and I listened to it, And I've never really thought that highly of Dutch Mantell. I know you know his accolades. I haven't been exposed to it. You know what I mean? Like I've never went back and watched the Puerto Rico wrestling, and I'm not really familiar with Mid-South, what he was doing there. So it kind of missed me, right? My experiences with Dutch Mantell were, you know, the Blues Brothers, right? And then when he came back with Jack Swagger. That's kind of my big history with Dutch Mantell. Well, Dutch Mantell had Aaron Stevens on, and they started talking about Josephus, specifically the question mark, and Dutch loved it. Dutch is also very old too, and then maybe he's seen senility has come in. I don't know, but he thought it was great. He told Aaron how much he loved it, how great he thought it was, and Aaron expanded on why it was so cool, because it was like a spoof of who did he say? I think the Mongolian Stomper was the like, it was like a parody of the Mongolian Stomper. In fact, the tights were like legitimately from someone from the 80s. It was, the whole thing was like it was parody, but the reaction was positive, and they went with it. But like somebody like Dutch Mantell, who I know is respected in the community, like I said, I'm not going to say that his word is bond or anything like that, but they said he enjoyed it. So, I mean, I've always said that, you know, characters and storylines are always subject to taste, but like, how do you feel about that? Knowing that Dutch Mantell, hearing it, I know you didn't hear the podcast, but me saying that to you, that Dutch Mantell liked it. What does that do for you? Does that change your opinion in any way, or does it make you look at Dutch Mantell differently, or how does that impact you?
I loved Mr. Bean. I loved Benny Hill. Doesn't mean that they need to be on a television show based on the Queen of England and a serious drama of 18th century, 17th century, 16th century royalty in England. I just got DK all excited right there. Yes, they're both British. Doesn't mean it needs to happen.
Okay.
People liked Tarzan movies, and the biggest part of Tarzan movies was Cheetah. But does Cheetah need to be in a movie in Gorillas of the Mist? You know what I'm saying?
No, I'm picking up what you're putting down. Like, don't get me wrong. I just thought that it was interesting, because I know that it's a gimmick that I know that you did not enjoy. I don't think DKM enjoyed it either. I was there, and I thought it was fun.
A gimmick can be fun, but it can't be insulting. And the problem was the question mark was insulting. You know, all right, you know what's fun? Patch is Dangerous Adrenaline Wrestling Gladiators answer to the Boogie Woogie Man Jimmy Valiant. Somebody I didn't get in the 80s, honestly. I didn't get Jimmy Valiant. I didn't get Bugsy McGraw. I can appreciate them more now, but I definitely didn't get them. But Patch is legitimately still one of the toughest guys out there, and even with one eye, could probably kick all three our asses at the same time. Even if we do sneak up on the side, he can't see us.
I wouldn't try it. I've seen him dance. I wouldn't try it. He's got moves.
He's got moves. Sometimes I think he's having a seizure. But yeah, he's like a T-Rex. You know, he's like the Indominus Rex mixed with Jimmy Boogie Woogie Man Valiant. That's what he is. He doesn't inside the ring. He doesn't insult the fans, and it's the same thing. Like, how can you take somebody seriously when they're grabbing somebody's dong and flipping them? How can you take wrestling seriously if you have to take 20 minutes to set up a maneuver and then land on your head in the process? How can you take somebody seriously as a sport of professional wrestling if you're sitting there slicing, you're 300 pounds and blown up and reeking of pot and cigarette smoke, and you're sitting there slicing each other up because you don't have any talent enough to actually can be able to wrestle? See, there's a difference between hardcore wrestling and ultra-violent BS.
Yeah. I'm not a big fan of
I'm editing myself. I'm learning.
and I appreciate
There's a difference between that stuff. Good fights can be bloody and amazing and brutal and painful and can sometimes involve weapons. Dumb standing there beating each other up with glass light tubes and no selling it and just sitting there and hitting each other with stupid looks on your faces back and forth. That just shows me right there that you guys have some serious mental issues and need to be locked away. So that's what I'm saying. Like, there's a difference between trying to put, all right, wrestling has always had its goofy side. Jim Cornette being thrown into the cake. Again, Jimmy the Boogie Woogie Man Valiant. If you really think about it, Kamala's kind of goofy.
No, he's
Abdul the Butcher is kind of goofy. You know, the missing link was kind of goofy. Even Ox Baker, as scary looking as that guy is, was kind of goofy. But you also kind of were afraid of him. I know a lot of people were scared of Abdul the Butcher because you suspended your disbelief and you really thought this guy was from Sudan. He was going to stab you with a screwdriver, a pencil, or a fork or something.
Well, I don't think you disbelieved it. I think when you saw Abdullah the Butcher out there, it wasn't a suspension of disbelief. I think you kind of thought, you may have known he wasn't from Sudan, but I think you really thought he was that crazy.
What ruined it for me is because he has the Michael Jackson voice. So really? Actually, when I'm in the bathroom and he asks me to excuse me, because he has to take a pee, I think that kind of ruined it for me. But before I knew that, I thought Abdullah the Butcher was one of the craziest people out there. I believe, and I know for a fact, Patch is one of the craziest people out there. That ain't a gimmick for him. He's legit nuts. I believe Dave Dahl still is absolutely horrible, and everybody should hate him.
Well, you know,
but it's because they make you believe that.
Going back to Question Mark, I think he's another example of what sometimes happens when people are wrestling too long. I think if you bring Question Mark out for the first show, the first episode that's being taped, and introduce him, I don't think he gets over the way he does. I think he's just a weird character. And like, okay, whatever. But you kind of bring him out towards the end of the evening, towards one of the later episodes and stuff like that. And you're tired. And again, I said earlier, being there live is different than watching on TV. You can get the adrenaline. You can kind of get the thing. You do go a little bit crazy yourself. And so you start, cheering them on and everything like that. And then it's, then he's that kind of fun, funny character. And I think the problem the NWA made is that the fans reacted in a way they weren't expecting on that first night. So then on the second night or third night or whichever night it was, that they're taping, then all of a sudden it's like, now they've had this reaction to him. So now they're booking him differently than they originally planned to book. And the guys, we saw a pay-per-view. We've been through one night of taping. We're here on the second night of taping. Yeah, let's go with this crazy bastard.
Well, let me correct you because I was there.
Yeah.
September 30th and October 1st. No pay-per-view attached to it, just straight up TV tapings. They did the first taping on the 30th. They did the second taping on the 1st. He was introduced midway through the first taping. He came out. He had a match with Ricky Starks and kind of got over. Then after the match, there was an issue with the camera, and I think they just told him to kill some time. And he just went and did some weird stuff and got over. And so his match was the second night. So when he came out there and did the weird stuff and got over, you guys could be right about this. I don't know. I'm not in the booking room, right? I know that they were very happy with the reception that he got, and that's probably shifted a lot of that.
Well, Lagana or somebody flat out said that they adapted their how they plan to use him based on the crowd reaction.
So based on what Aaron Stevens said on the podcast, is that the plan all along was that he was supposed to be this. He was supposed to be like a judo instructor for Stevens and helping Stevens to become more acquainted with martial arts because he wanted to do this martial art thing. And then the flip side, they were going to have he was going to take advantage of the question mark because question mark was unfamiliar with the U.S. customs and in the English language. So it was in a role similar to what they had with the Miz and Damian Sandow, where the Miz was out there to kind of take advantage of Damian Sandow. The Miz was hated. Sandow was revered. It was the same storyline, but now Stevens was going to be hated, and the idea was that the question mark would be revered. Just real quick, I put it up because Erlinda is in the chat, and she said that she flew from California to Atlanta to see the question mark at Into the Fire, and I thought he and Aaron were awesome and the best thing in the NWA. It's funny, Erlinda and I might have been on the same flight, although no, I didn't go to Into the Fire. I was at the first taping, so nice to meet you, Erlinda. But I just wanted to point out, booking sometimes could be, what we enjoy is different than what other people enjoy. And I'm willing to step back, but I would say, to kind of go back to the original story that we were talking about here, in general, the booking has been pretty bad, and it's been bad for a while.
Yeah. I want to wrap up one thought there. Just where we're talking about question mark. And, look, everybody likes something different. If people out there for that, fine. But I think another issue was we all knew who it was too.
Yeah.
And I think if it had truly been somebody who wasn't he supposed to be suspended?
Yeah.
And so, I think there was some of that. Okay, they bring the guy back under a mask. We know who he is. And, and then they never even tackled that aspect. Because then later Josephus came back and wrestled as Josephus and then something like that. And even to the story, fine that Dutch Mantel liked it. I didn't. And I still hold that probably done a different time, he probably wouldn't have been over as he got. I think there was a goofiness to him that kind of got, like you said, got him over in a tired crowd.
Slap happy.
Yeah.
True. Real quick, I want to say hi to Erlinda. We're actually friends on Instagram, and I was like, wait, that name sounds familiar, so I just looked it up. Hi, Erlinda. Thanks for checking out the show. Let's real quick talk about Power.
No.
We're gonna do it like in 10 minutes before we have to play the interview with play the conversation with Shawn Donavan. But real quick, the thing about Power is it started off with that matchup between Troop and Talos, and to me it kills the mystique. So to me, Talos is damaged goods now. I don't look at him the same way. Then we got the tag team match with Dak Draper and Mims versus La Rebellion. I've said it. I kind of feel like now's the time to move on from La Rebellion. I don't know if it's time to move on to Draper and Mims. I didn't like the way that they screwed up the finish of the match because Billy comes out and says, "Oh no, he wasn't the legal man. Titles don't change hands." It was very much a dusty finish, but not in a good way. The referee, it shouldn't have been Billy Corgan coming out. For someone who says he doesn't want to be an on-screen character, why do you keep coming onto my screen? I just felt like there's better ways to do that. Maybe somebody accidentally used an illegal object, or they planted an illegal object, or something. Time limit draw. I don't care, but I felt like they kind of killed the momentum for Mims and for Dak Draper in that match by not having it just go. Yes, they can't lose to them again, but why not just go with a draw? What did you think of that match, DK?
it was stupid. And well, here's part of the problem is they've done nothing to make really Draper and Mims appear to be a real threat. I mean, they won the one match to get into the thing, but you don't consider them a real threat to the World Tag Team titles. I don't even know that you consider them a threat to the U.S. Tag Team titles. Yeah. And so all of a sudden they go out there and they win and they're going to be the champions, and you're like, what? And by the way, why would you put this match on before the tournament anyway? Because, you know, the only option to make it look good is to have a draw.
Yeah.
You know, without going in and hurting one of the teams. And so now you still kind of hurt your world champions because they did lose. It may not have been the legal man, but, you know, come on, let's be honest. Legal person doesn't always get pinned in wrestling.
Technicalities be damned. It didn't change the direction of the match.
Yeah, and so now you got that. And then what am I supposed to think of all this? And, you know, I don't think Dusty finishes, which were really Eddie Graham finishes and Jack Atkinson finishes and all that. I don't think they work today. I think there's just too much going on that it's hard to get that to actually work.
Well, one of the reasons it doesn't work is because you have to be emotionally invested in everybody in the match. And the problem is they don't know how to make anybody emotionally invested in anybody in the match.
There's one guy I'm emotionally invested in right now. Silas Mason.
Yeah.
Got himself over. And again, I would also credit Pollo as part of that package.
For sure. 100%. Speaking of which,
here's the thing, real quick. Here's my problem is I think, honestly, it was just a reason for Billy Corgan to become the Dixie Khan of the NWA.
Probably.
The next, I spoke incorrectly, and I said there's one person I care about. I actually care about a lot of people on the roster. There are a lot of guys on the in the NWA that are working hard, guys and gals. A lot of folks are working really hard to put themselves in that right position to get themselves over. One of the guys that I genuinely appreciate is a guest of the show, Jeremiah Plunkett. He came out and had a hell of a match with Kerry Morton. They built up the fact that this was initially supposed to be for the junior heavyweight title, but Plunkett just fell short of meeting the weight requirement, which, number one, if you follow Jeremiah Plunkett's career, he has certainly lost a lot of weight. Looks phenomenal in the ring right now, better than he's looked in a long time. Credit to him for getting himself in such good shape. But this was a fun match that he had with Kerry Morton. And I very much felt like this was an audition for Plunkett for something more. He went out there and he made Kerry look good. They had a good match. DK, your face makes me think you don't agree with that. What did you think of this match?
No, there's a problem, but the problem's mine.
All right, let's hear it.
Overall, the match was good. And
was it a fun match or no?
Yeah, I think so. I think Plunkett did what he needed to do. Like you said, I think Plunkett made Morton look better than he is. The problem is I've gotten to the point with Morton where I can't help but notice how sloppy he is. And unfortunately, it's gotten to the point where I tend to notice that more than anything else when he's the one that's wrestling. And it really is. It's not him, it's me. But sometimes when something like that happens, it's hard to enjoy the match as I should enjoy the match just as a fan sitting down watching it, because I'm too busy noticing things that the average person is not going to notice. And I don't know. Jaden, how do you get over that? Or do you get over that?
The problem is that he takes you out of the match. That might just be a personal thing with you.
You think Kerry does?
I think Kerry takes DK out of the match, not because necessarily of anything with Kerry as much as what a already perceived notion that DK has against Kerry.
All right.
Kerry can become the greatest wrestler ever, but unfortunately, once you initially create an opinion on somebody, it's really hard to get out of that. I'll use an extremely weird example. I didn't like the Teen Titans TV show at first, and I just had a dislike for it, and it took me a while to actually let my own perception of it change to the fact that it ended up becoming one of my favorite television shows, the Teen Titans, before it became Teen Titans Go, and that was really, really bad. But I enjoyed it, but it took a while to get past that perception. I think immediately is because I realized that I had an initial dislike for it, and I wasn't giving it a fair chance. And from that point forward, once I realized that, it made it easier for me to do so. But sometimes first impressions mean a lot. You know, it's really hard to get over initial conceptions of what people are and or what a particular product, you know, before some people never get over that. It's kind of like that's one problem right now I think the NWA has is anybody watching the NWA right now, if they happen to pick up at a wrong time where it's really bad. And yes, Young Justice was amazing. But the problem is, if they happen to watch one of those really, really bad episodes, they're never going to be able to see, even if it's great forever. Apparently, Impact has turned into a really good product, but it's been bad for so long and so bad for a while that it's hard to believe that I still can't give it a chance.
Yeah.
I watch Impact from time to time, and they have some really good matches on a really bad show.
That's fair. And then, of course, to end the show, to round it out, we had Chris Adonis come in and put the master lock on Aaron Stevens. The point of this was what? We know that Stevens is no longer a wrestler. He's a manager. So he needs to be phased out of storylines like this. The Master Lock Challenge, they presented it as, oh, this is a nice treat for you Chicago fans. Personally, I'm over that as well. This is a wrestling show. This is the kind of shit that I would change the channel from when I'm watching WWE. I didn't care for it. Like, I get it. Like, and there'll be people who are in the chat are like, yeah, this was fun. It's a fun little segment. But it's like, what are we building towards here? There's an hour of TV every week on Tuesdays. There's 45 minutes of TV on Saturdays. Are we getting the best build we can for the pay-per-views? Are we drawing people in? When I see Adonis in the ring with somebody who camera just died. When I see Adonis
in the show,
when I see Adonis in the ring with somebody who is not wrestling, it makes me just think like, hey, what are we actually doing here? What's the point? But that's that. I mean, that's kind of it, guys.
I guess that was a callback to last week, or whatever week it was. But where he got that stupid double count out they did, where Adonis has Stevens in the master lock, and they're like Adonis and Tyrus are basically like claiming they should win because the manager went out, and it was like, okay, that was not how the world works, and that, and it was kind of stupid. And so, yeah, I mean, this was obviously a time filler.
Yeah, and again,
and I could go with Lou. I don't mind Murdoch's winning the title.
Yeah,
I would have thought that. Nobody liked Knox for the longest time, but now Murd Knox is the tag team we all seem to want to win.
It's the name that you brought up. You came up with. Actually, I'm still rooting for Jeremiah Plunkett and Eric Jackson. That's my team. Just kidding.
Are we supposed to talk about our brackets, by the way? Because I kind of need help making mine.
That's a week from today. We're actually going to invite the other Alliance guys. We're also going to invite Rick Del Santo to be on. So we can all just talk about the brackets, talk about what we like with this tag team tournament. I know, look, there's some of you that are not excited about it. Hell, there are some people on the show that are not excited about it, but it is a historic pay-per-view for the NWA. as it's been. This will be the third edition of it. Historically, it has significance back to the old Jim Crockett promotions. So we are going to talk about it. We're going to spend some time with it. But that's going to wrap it up for the live portion of the show. I do thank you guys for checking us out today. I know DKM and Jaden will be taking off, and you're going to see a pre-recorded conversation I had with Shawn Donavan of why can't I think of their tag team name? Jaden, help me out.
Sent to Slaughter.
Sent to Slaughter. Thank you. And I think that's going to be a lot of fun. So stick around. We're going to get to that just in a second here, as soon as I can pull up the video file. Don't fall asleep. And don't fall asleep.
Yeah, guys, I know Shawn Donavan personally. Again, if you are a fan of professional wrestling instead of sports entertainment, if you're into guys, good wrestling and good personality, he is a really good person to listen to. I think you're going to become a fan. You may not know him now, but he's going to be the guy you never knew you always wanted. And, guys, you guys might become Sent to Slaughter fans, and especially Shawn Donavan fans. And he's the only wrestler barred from Rowan University. He pissed off the fans so much, he's actually barred from coming to wrestling at Rowan for Dog now. So stay tuned and check him out. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Make sure we bring videos every week.
I'm talking to Shawn Donavan. You guys know him from the Crockett Cup. Well, if you don't know him, you're going to know him. That's for sure. Him and Dan Maff will be entering this year's Crockett Cup. And I'm excited to see you in the Crockett Cup. Now, I've kind of followed your career from afar. I've been checking out some of the shows that you've been working on with like Dangerous Adrenaline Wrestling Gladiators. I've seen some of your work with Creative Pro. And I know that you've been doing some work with the IWF as well in the past, and you've been really all over the place. Let's talk about your career a little bit, Shawn. First of all, how you doing?
I'm fantastic. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Of course. And then of course, we'll also give you time to talk about like what's going on in your career. But let's get right to it first and foremost. I like to ask this question to everyone that comes on the show. All of us grow up as wrestling fans. Well, most of us grow up as wrestling fans. I've been watching wrestling since I was 5 years old. And I had that bug. I had that kick that I wanted to be a pro wrestler. But, of course, I never followed through with it. What was the aha moment for you that made you decide to become a pro wrestler?
It's weird. I don't know if I ever really had an aha moment. Like you, I grew up a fan of professional wrestling. I found professional wrestling through my grandfather, who used to watch wrestling when I was a kid. He was off the boat, fresh from Italy. So in the 1970s, early 80s, his big claim to fame was watching Bruno Sammartino. And I just remember playing around with my toys and seeing him watch it on TV. And I was just captivated by it. And as I grew up watching it, I think into the early 90s, as I started to get older and understanding life a little bit more and what I wanted to do, once I got to high school, I had some different things on the table that I wanted to do that I followed through with. But one of the things of still watching wrestling at that standpoint was I always wanted to give professional wrestling a try. So I don't think there was ever one specific aha moment. I think it was just a culmination of over the years loving professional wrestling and wanting to give it a shot.
Who in particular was somebody that you enjoyed watching when you did watch?
Yeah, for the most part, growing up, I always gravitated towards the villains. I think from the baby faces or hero side, if you want to call it that, I was a big Ultimate Warrior fan, and I think I was a big fan at the time because of just the pageantry of the outfit, the colors, the energy, the intensity. But I really grew up more as a villain, loving the villains. Just for some reason, I was captivated at the way that they can really control an audience and how they can make somebody hate you to that degree. And for me, growing up, it was Arn Anderson that really stuck out to me. But to me, the biggest one that stuck out to me, who I consider the greatest of all time, is Terry Funk.
Oh yeah, Terry Funk, of course. What a good guy to pick there on that one. Terry Funk, and the way that guy was able to reinvent himself throughout the years. I remember seeing him.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I remember seeing him what would have been kind of later in his career when he was kind of working with World Championship Wrestling, Jim Crockett Promotions, NWA, and he was working more like an announcer commentator, and he told Ric Flair, hey, now that you won, I want that match. And Ric Flair's like, no, you're past your prime. And he attacked him. And then we had that great match. I think that was I want to say that was at a Clash of the Champions, but now I don't remember. And it just showed a completely different side from Terry Funk. And that was before he would have that huge run in ECW or his maybe 5th run in the WWE. I mean, all these things happened after that. And they kind of portrayed him as somebody who was washed up then.
Right. Yeah, I think when it comes to Terry Funk, I mean, I really started to understand Terry Funk as a teenager when I was watching ECW. And I mean, coming from the East Coast here where ECW was I believe it was on the MSG network, and it wouldn't go on till like 2 a.m. So dating myself, I would set the VCR and I would record it, in case I fell asleep and missed it. But I remember watching him as a kid through NWA and through WCW and even his short stint in WWF, and just always loved the antics of his character, and then truly understanding that as a teenager, and then even more understanding it getting into the industry. I truly understood what kind of a performer he was, and he literally transcended almost 5 decades and was able to reinvent himself in every single decade that he wrestled in. So, to me, when I look at the body of work of a lot of performers in our industry, how many performers can say that they reinvented themselves and kind of stayed in the limelight for almost 5 decades?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, when you think about it, maybe nobody, right? Maybe he's alone. I mean, Ric Flair, sure, he was around, but he was never a different guy. He was always Ric Flair, but Terry Funk went from a very, very much metamorphosis throughout his career. Speaking of careers, you got your start in IWF, right?
Yes, I did. Yeah, I started in the late 2000. I started training with IWF and made my debut in 2001. That was kind of a fun, interesting way into the industry because at the time in the mid 90s, I discovered independent shows through a family friend who loved professional wrestling, and going to shows, he knew somebody by the name of Brett Schwann, who was one of the early, and again, I date myself going back to the 90s, but he was one of the early independent phone hotline innovators called the Wrestling Clothesline. And he was actually very good friends with a gentleman that I consider to this day a mentor of mine in Chris Candido. Going to these independent shows, I got to meet Chris and a lot of these other performers. And it just so happened that I was at an independent show one time, and there was an advertisement for the promotion IWF, which at the time was run by a local journeyman by the name of Kevin Knight and a local promoter in the New Jersey area named AJ Sparks, who credit to this day, I'm still very good friends with him. And they opened up a wrestling school together, and they had a 1-day fantasy camp where the winner would get free tuition to train. And at the time I was going to college, I was working 2 jobs, just trying to support myself, and knew that I had to try this out and see if I could win it, because I didn't have the funds to pay the full tuition at the time. And, I went into it, and I remember afterwards, AJ Sparks pulled me aside. He's like, we're about to announce, the winner here. Unfortunately, it's not you. You came in at a close second, but what I can do is I can offer you training at half the price. It's a 1-day thing. I didn't even think twice. I didn't even bother looking at how much money I had in my bank account, but I cut him a deposit check that day, and it just changed my life. So
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, you never know where life is gonna take you. And I started it. I think that was it was on a weekend. I think I started training like 2 weeks later, and for the next 7 years, it was 4 days a week training at 4 or 5 hours a day, sometimes longer on Sundays. But it changed my life because it's something that I always wanted to do.
Now that you did have a hiatus in your career, a sabbatical, if you will. What
Mhm.
led you to taking a break from in ring?
I took a small sabbatical. I totally didn't stay away. I did help out on a number of different independent events backstage, just to kind
Okay.
of stay involved on things. But it was 7 straight years, as I mentioned, of training and doing shows on the weekends, never being home, trying to knock down doors and really create opportunities for myself. And it just kind of burned me out a little bit. I was also going through some different things personally, relationship wise, that kind of caused me to kind of end up taking that hiatus too. And, looking back on it now, it probably wasn't the right decision for me to make. But again, we all make different decisions at different points in our life. And the way I look at it is if I didn't follow the steps that I did, I wouldn't be talking to you probably right now. So I do believe that everything in life happens for a reason. I was meant to take that small sabbatical because when I came back, I was very refreshed and I was ready to roll and just continue going. And I've been doing it, without that sabbatical for the last, I think it's going on like 12 years now. So
How did the pandemic affect your wrestling? I know for a lot of places they took a knee to just shut the doors, which I think was in hindsight, I think it was still a responsible decision, but maybe it wasn't 100% necessary. But how did that affect your in-ring career? Did you guys were you affected by the pandemic pause?
Obviously, from a financial standpoint, I think everybody was affected by that. But obviously, the doors had to be closed on it for safety reasons for everybody involved, not just performers, but fans and everybody involved, because especially in the early days of the pandemic where things were happening, no one truly understood what was actually going on. And just, we were just seeing at the forefront how deadly this virus was. But I think what it did for me in a way was it actually gave me a little bit of a break to rest my body, because as I've talked to a number of other performers that have been going hard for so many years without a break, it gave our bodies a much needed rest. I think it also mentally gave us the ability to refocus a little bit and focus on different things. Physically it was challenging because there were no gyms that were open. So in the very beginning of the pandemic, I was running around to every Walmart, Target, fitness center possible, trying to find any type of weight equipment, and everything was sold out. I mean, I was lucky I had, a set of dumbbells up to, I think, 25 pounds. I had resistance bands. And, basically what I did for the pandemic was, I created like a circuit workout outside. And I would go walking and jogging and things of that nature, just doing the best I could to stay in shape. And then there was a point where a buddy of mine had found a gym that somehow we don't still know how it was able to be open. But it was one of those gyms that didn't have like a person that's working there. Like it was a key card entry that you can go in 24 hours a day. And then I would find my way to, I would drive there. It was about a 30-minute drive, but I would drive there at least 4 days a week and get my workout in. You had to wear a mask because it was heavily, supervised on camera. And it was brutal to work out in the summer with, very little air conditioning, having to wear a mask. But, you do what's needed to keep your body in shape, because we knew this would pass eventually. We would hope it would. And we knew the doors to the world of wrestling would open back up again. So, if the national companies were able to find a way to do it, then you definitely know the independents are going to find a way to make its way back.
So, that's kind of cool that you had the foresight, because I know I was one of those people like, man, is this our new normal? Like, is this how we're going to live from now on? Is, wearing a mask in public? And, it's kind of funny that, that year that I wore that mask, I wasn't sick at all. Didn't catch a cold, didn't catch a flu, nothing. And then we take the mask off and all of a sudden, oh, now you got a cold again, you got a flu again.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing that drove me during the pandemic, and I say this with, absolute confidence, because I know it affects a lot of people in our industry and athletes as a whole. But I suffer from a little bit of body dysmorphia, where I'm always conscious about the way that I look. So that kind of drives me, and it did drive me during the pandemic every day to do what I needed to do to get in shape and stay in shape. I mean, obviously, there's nothing like having the in-ring cardio by being in the ring. But, we were, my buddies and I, we were all pushing ourselves, challenging ourselves every single day, posting workouts that we're doing and trying to challenge each other to match the workouts that we're doing, just as a confidence booster to say, hey, we still got to keep up with this. We still got to do this every day. I mean, I would wake up every day and the first thing I would do is work out. And the first thing I would do as a warm up is I would do 100 push-ups. Didn't care how long it took me to do them. I would warm up with that, and then it would be my circuit workout every single day, and I would do that for 5 days a week. And then I would go out walking, with my girlfriend and things of that nature, just doing what we can to get whatever cardio we could.
That's awesome. Like 100 push-ups that's your warm up. That would take me all day. That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't starting off with 100 push-ups to start. I mean, I'm not a push-up guy, so to speak. Even keeping myself in shape. It's funny, you can lift a certain amount of weights however you want, but sometimes for certain people, doing X amount of push-ups is not easy. So I wasn't able to start with 100. It took me a while to build up to 100, but I finally got there eventually. And but yeah, I think for anybody involved in our industry, we had to do what it took. And then unfortunately for some, it didn't work out that way. Some fell into depression slumps and some fell into other different areas. And not everybody kind of came out of the pandemic, as well mentally as they went into it. And, I myself was a little messed up from being locked up for so long. And, having to just, talk to my family through something like this, through like Zoom or something like that. And having, we're having like Zoom family dinners, and like it's the weirdest thing to think that this was actually real, and not some weird story that you're watching from a movie.
Well, the crazy thing is like, in 100 years, you're going to be talking about that pandemic pause, the COVID-19 shutdowns, and you're going to be able to be like, wow, we were there, we experienced it, like the way your grandparents would tell you stories from the 50s and 40s and all that stuff. I mean, I was fortunate. Like, I have a relatively big family. I have a wife and 3 kids, and my mother-in-law lives with us. So we were all here. We were all safe. It was cool. I didn't really miss anything. And my friends, we did the same thing. We did, we'd all jump on a Zoom call and play video games online. So it's like, I didn't miss that either. And we were still doing this podcast, which, believe it or not, had some sanity help there too, because it was a weird time. And I remember being back at the first wrestling show, and we were still kind of in the pandemic. It was in 2021, and it was just very strange, very weird to be back in those environments. Did it take some getting used to get back into the ring with this brave new world?
Yeah, it did, because it was very interesting. The first show that I did, luckily it was an outdoor show, and it was coined a drive-in show. And the reason why they did it was that nobody was next to each other sitting in lawn chairs. So it was kind of like, it was kind of, how would I put this? You think of what was it, the John Cena Eddie Guerrero street fight in the backstage where all the cars parked around each other. And that's what it was. The cars were all parked around in a circle with the ring set up in the middle. I remember everybody had, for the longest time, you had to, at least the places that I decided to work for, I made sure they had COVID protocols in place and making sure that everybody was tested a minimum of 48 hours prior to the event, making sure that you're wearing a mask in the locker room. Like, I was very big on stuff like that, not just for myself, because I have a family at home too. And the last thing I want to do is take that chance and bring that home to my family and they get sick and God forbid something happens. So I definitely think it took a little bit used to in the locker room. I definitely know that my ring wind was affected my first match back in, because not having, wrestled in, I think it was like something like 13 or 14 months like that, definitely took a toll on you. But once the world started to open back up and schools started to open back up again, and I was able to start coaching and training again, everything got back to the way it needed to be.
That's awesome. Now I want to backpedal a little bit, because you mentioned a name that is very respected in the J Cal household, and you said Chris Candido. I'm very much a big Chris Candido guy. Of course, he carried the title, the 10 pounds of gold, after Shane Douglas famously tossed it to the ground. his life ended way too soon. I really felt like there was a lot more gas in the tank, and tragically we lost him. But I did see that you were able to induct him into the I want to make sure that I get the name right, the ISPW Hall of Fame.
Correct.
Tell me what Chris Candido meant to you, because you said he was a mentor, and tell me about the experience of being able to induct him into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, so I mean, as I mentioned earlier, my history with Chris went back to meeting him numerous times with that gentleman Brett Schwann, who had the Wrestling Hotline, clothesline, and kind of getting to know him just a little bit, not really that much. But when I started my training with IWF, a lot of times in certain areas where guys are technically local, and Chris Candido was a local New Jersey guy. He knew Kevin Knight and he knew AJ Sparks and all these other guys. When you saw a certain crew at every indie show, that they all ran together in packs. So when you saw certain guys, you knew Chris Candido was a part of that. But he would just, in my early days of training, he and Balls Mahoney, who, they lived very close to each other in South Jersey, would make that drive to North Jersey, and they would come up to our school on numerous occasions and would just get in the ring with all of us, and they would just train, with us. And then they would sit and talk with us for hours on end. And then the same local New Jersey shows that I would be on in the beginning of my career, places like NWA New Jersey, ACWA, these are old promotions that are long gone now. But Chris would be a part of those shows. And again, I would just listen to him talk, sit under the learning tree. Once or twice on shows that I was on, I had asked him to watch the match that I was having, and he provided incredible feedback to me. So he really meant a lot to my career, because he was the guy that really helped me build the foundation of understanding what wrestling psychology actually is, and what it's about. And a lot of times he would always tell you these stories, and he would say, what I'm telling you right now is not going to make a difference right now, but at some point in your career, whether you're in a match, you're in a car, you're in the locker room, or you're talking to somebody, the light bulb is going to go off. And sure enough, over the course of my career, a lot of things that he spoke about did, and truly helped me shape my love and understanding for the industry. And when Tommy Fierro, who owns ISPW, came to me, because at the time, I'm just coming back from an injury, unable to wrestle at that point, presented me with this idea of wanting to have me induct Chris and present the award to his brother, meant so much to me because of what Chris meant to me in my career. So I wanted to make sure that I created a speech that was very personal to me, and it was very humble to me to be able to do that and present that award to his brother Johnny.
That's incredible. Again, I think everyone I've ever met has only had nice things to say about Chris Candido, but I still feel like he's severely underrated, not only as a performer, but like I said, it was tragic how things panned out for him in Puerto Rico, and I felt like had given the opportunity, he could have been I said Puerto Rico, I meant to say Impact. I think he could have had maybe another run with the big two. Maybe he could have been back in the WWE. Maybe he could have had a run with Impact in a more pivotal character than just as a side character that he was being used as. I
definitely think that if Chris were still with us today, that he would definitely be in a very pivotal role in one of the major companies as a producer, or doing something backstage, or having his own school, because his love for the industry, you could just feel that every time he talked about it. And unfortunately, the world lost a tremendous performer. And even now in my days of coaching students, one of the guys that I always preach them to look up his work is Chris all the time. And you can just tell when you're watching him, you can tell whether he's just calling that stuff on the fly in the middle of a sea of, 500 to, multiple thousands of people, or whether it was something that was put together intricately. The man was a master at his craft.
That's for sure. You said like he would have been in a pivotal role with either the WWE, maybe AEW as a producer. I always think about that time, especially with the NWA. I'm a big NWA guy. His run as world champion, I felt like it was lacking. And I think if he had been around for the resurgence of the NWA, when you had guys like Adam Pearce running the division as world champion, I just imagine an Adam Pearce versus Chris Candido feud for that 10 pounds of gold. I think could have been a license to print money. Both those guys on the mic, both those guys in the ring. I think it would have been an amazing time for the NWA. Like, I feel like we all got shortchanged on that one because unfortunately he passed.
Passed so quickly. I agree with you 100% on that one.
And speaking of NWA, and I guess I didn't know this, you were working NWA New Jersey. Does that mean that you had interactions with oh man, my brain never works the way it's supposed to. I'll have the most random wrestling fact when I'm not on a podcast, and then when I'm trying to pull a name, I can't think of it.
Are you speaking of Dennis Corluzzo?
Yes, Dennis Corluzzo, the czar of professional wrestling.
Yeah, I had very, very minimal interactions with him, but NWA New Jersey was around after Dennis's passing. So I had only and only from a fan standpoint did I ever have a few interactions with Dennis. But I think at a certain point I actually never understood how it came to be. But I believe, when NWA was struggling, I think they had licensed the name to a lot of different state affiliates. And, one of them was NWA New Jersey. I think there was also NWA like Mid-South. There was NWA, in a different state. So while I don't think it was ever directly affiliated, the name kind of just, it stuck a hole in the ground. So, I don't ever consider NWA New Jersey actually working for the NWA. So I think it was just a way to got names out there.
I disagree with you, sir, and I'll tell you because my NWA historian type status. The NWA was a bunch of members, and always was a bunch of members. And even when even after Jim Crockett Promotions left in 93, and even when New Japan Pro Wrestling left in 93, and even when CMLL left in 93, there were still members of the NWA. There was Dennis Corluzzo, there was Jim Crockett Jr., and there was also in 94, there was Don Owens, and he was in the league until I think about 91 or 92. And then you had the promotions in Australia, and there was still some sort of semblance of the NWA. At its purest form, it was still an alliance, and it didn't change the alliance until Bruce Tharp bought out the NWA or came in control of it, however you want to say it. So I do consider you someone who has worked for the NWA, whether you worked for the NWA New Jersey or if you worked for, I know for a time Dangerous Adrenaline Wrestling Gladiators was part of the NWA. I don't think you were working for them when they were a part of the NWA, but if you had, I'd say, you worked for the NWA. Of course you did. Okay,
we'll take it. Then we'll take it on that as that one.
So let's talk about your return to the NWA. You are going to be a part of Crockett Cup, and I have the graphic here, so I'm feeling prepared. Thank you. And Dan Maff. Stepping back into the NWA. Now, Dan Maff was in the NWA not too long ago. He was actually a part of he was part of the NWA at the prior to the pandemic. He was part of the national title tournament. Not national, but the TV title tournament.
He had made that connection through at the time when he had signed a contract working with at that time with Ring of Honor, and the connection was made there. And he had some really great matches there. He also had a great match with Trevor Murdoch that I thought blew the roof off the building. So
incredible match.
Yeah, so it's a lot of fun, not just for us to kind of pick up where we left off with our tag team Sent to Slaughter. It's an even more incredible to have the opportunity to be a part of the NWA. As again, growing up, being lucky enough on the East Coast to actually get the channels that NWA was actually on is really incredible, because this is the most prestigious tag team tournament that there is, and for our names to be a part of that is something that can now never be taken away from us, so it's incredible not just to be able to step back in the ring and team with Danny, but it's incredible for us to be able to do it on that platform.
And you know, you got seated relatively high for a tag team that hasn't been in the NWA. I mean, personally, I think I would have slotted you a bit higher because they slotted you number 17 out of 24 teams. You know, you take into consideration that you and Dan, former USA Pro Tag Champs, SKPW Tag Champs, WXW Tag Champs, PPW Tag Champs, and a lot of these titles you held simultaneously. You know, you guys are a legitimate tag team. You're not, for NWA fans who aren't familiar, they might just see Dan Maff and this guy, and no disrespect intended. They see Dan Maff and this guy, and I think, well, what is this all about? But you guys are a legitimate tag team and have the accolades to back it up. How do you feel about being, you know, ranked 17, seeded 17 in this tournament?
The way I look at it is, there's a phrase by Arn Anderson that I love, and it says, adversity introduces a man unto itself. And I think, you know, for being seated where we are, you know, combined over 40 years experience, you know, Danny and I have faced adversity in many different forms in our industry. So to us being number 17, we welcome it. We're looking to prove people wrong. So
that's a great way to look at it. You guys in the first round are set to face Fodder and Flip Gordon. Now that's a new pairing. They haven't really teamed before. And then, you know, if you're successful in the first round, that's not to take anything away from Fodder or Flip Gordon. None of it's a foregone conclusion. You still got to go in there and do your thing. If you pass them, then you face the NWA World Tag Team Champions, La Rebellion.
Yep. That's going to be an incredible opportunity if he and I make it, you know, are able to get past Flip and Fodder, which I'm very confident that we will be. You know, our goal is to turn heads. You know, we're old school to the core. You know, we're not this new style, you know, new generation type of performers that are doing all these incredible acrobatic things. You know, Danny and I are big guys. We're ground based. You know, it's like the way that I would look at this is we're the immovable force. So if they want to try those fancy flips and things of that nature, they're going to run into a brick wall.
Well, and that's kind of like the signature of the NWA. It's land of the big guys. You know, a lot of the, you know, if you turn on AEW today, you're going to see, you know, MJF, who's a great wrestler, great competitor, world champion, but he would be dwarfed by most of the guys on the NWA roster. And that's not to put down MJF at all, but just to kind of point out that how big the talent is in the NWA. You know, there is a junior heavyweight division, but it's not the focal point of the promotion. You know, the world champion right now is Tyrus, a man who's, you know, well over 400 pounds. I believe he's about 6'4", big guy. You look at the national champion, EC3, and maybe not as tall, but it's still a big dude. And you've got the TV champion Tom Latimer, 6'2", 240, built like a brick house. I mean, that the NWA is certainly not at a lack of big guys, and I think you guys are going to fit right in there.
I think so, and what I echo your sentiments, because what I love about the NWA is that it's going back to the roots of professional wrestling and doing wrestling the way that I grew up on, this type of wrestling that I love. Don't get me wrong, I understand that pro wrestling has evolved, and it has, and I've evolved my style in some of those elements, but I've kept my style very old school to the core, because for me, it helps me stand out on events, because when you see me walk through a curtain, you're getting a completely different performer, whether I'm match number 2 or match number 7. If I'm match number 7, you have not seen anybody like me in the previous 6 matches. So I'm really excited for the both of us to go in there and be able to show the NWA what we have to offer. And like I always say to myself, and as I always teach my students in coaching, with every opportunity is to, you know, go in there with no expectations and no disappointments. We're going to go in there, we're going to show out, and we're going to show up. And we're going to leave it up to God with whatever happens after that. You know, we would love the opportunity to come back, and who knows, maybe it will be immediately, maybe it won't be, but we're going to do our thing, and we're going to show everybody, and we're going to turn heads.
I love that. Show up and with no expectation and leave no regrets. I love that. That's you just hit Jay right in the old heart there. That's awesome. You talk about your time in the NWA. Well, I mean, this tournament that's coming up, but when you're wrestling in the independents up and down the northern seaboard, who were some of your favorite opponents to face?
Wow, there's so many to choose from. I've had some really good matches with a gentleman by the name of Richard Holiday, who's a tremendous performer in his own right. When it comes to favorite opponents, I've wrestled my buddy Dan Maff a number of times, and we've both left physical wounds on each other that have stood the test of time. But I would say, for me, and I say this after being in the industry for over 20 years, my favorite opponent has been over the last couple of years has been Leon St. Giovanni, LSG. We have had some brutal wars up and down in so many different states, including a number of gimmick matches for Wrestle Pro Alaska, where we've toured there, and we've torn the house down with Singapore cane matches, dog collar matches, last man standing matches. So to me, I always point to him as probably, as of right now, the best opponent that I've ever been in the ring with.
I do want to ask you some more about Wrestle Pro, especially in Alaska, because that is that to me, that's ingenious. Like, why not bring wrestling to a market that so underserved?
Yeah.
Tell me, like, I want to get to that, and I'll bring that back up in a minute. But as I was preparing for the interview, I was watching some of your matches, and of course, I'm a big fan of Dangerous Adrenaline Wrestling Gladiators. I actually got to go out to their last event back in March, and I saw that you had wrestled for them, and you wrestled a match against the Patriot. Now, first and foremost, that guy wrestled heel on you, man. He's supposed to be American, and you're the one out there that was, celebrating more like an American than the Patriot. Tell me about wrestling that match, and was that a fun match? I know it's a couple of years removed, but tell me about that match and how much you enjoyed it or not enjoyed working.
Working the Patriot was a lot of fun. He's incredible to feed off of. He's been anywhere and everywhere, and in every national promotion there is, and just working with him was so much fun. It was so easy to be in there with him and just react. And that's the biggest thing about our industry. A lot of times guys go in there and they try to act, and what you should do is just react. You react to what's going on in the ring. You react how the fans are going up against you. I always was taught that that's what you do in professional wrestling is you react, you don't act. And that's something I've carried with me for my whole career. So all I did was go in there and just react to the Patriot. And to me, the winners at the end were the fans. I thought we put on a very entertaining contest for them and gave them their money's worth.
Well, my favorite was when you were cutting the promo pre-match and the kids started booing you. You said, "Why don't you go home and do your homework? And so someday you can be successful like me." I was like, yes, go touch grass, young one. That was great.
Yes, that's a fun line I love using on little kids because it always gets a reaction from them because no kid wants to go home and do their homework. So I just feed them the truth.
And the truth hurts sometimes, so it's good.
Yeah, unfortunately it does.
What about Biggie Biggs? He's somebody that's has a history with the NWA, spent a lot of time in the Northeast. Did you have any good memories or good matches with Biggie Biggs?
Yes, I have. Biggie Biggs is another mentor of mine. I consider a very close friend. We still text each other here and there. Unfortunately, his career was cut short due to injuries that he amassed over time. But Biggie Biggs was a very, very big mentor of mine over my career because, he was with the IWF for so many years that I was there training. And while he wasn't at every training session, he was there for a good portion of them. And he was a guy that really helped me own my basics, my fundamentals. He always made the mood light, was a big jokester. So I got my early days of learning how to rib people from him. Unfortunately, we're in 2023 now. The world is very different. You really can't rib anybody anymore. So you can play tiny little pranks on each other, but not to the lengths that we used to go to back in the day before there was a social media and things of that nature. But Biggie Biggs was a tremendous, big man performer that a lot of people, I don't know how much footage of his is really on YouTube and things of that nature, but I would encourage, guys that are in our industry or getting into our industry that are big guys to study his work, because he was a guy that didn't do it a lot in the ring, but what he did was very impactful.
And he exuded charisma. I mean, for sure.
Oh my God.
Watching him cut a promo.
That's what it was. He was the fat daddy, Biggie Biggs. So
yeah. And he seems so comfortable on the mic, and I think that's kind of a rarity, especially for whatever reason with big guys. You don't normally get great promos out of big guys, but he had no problem cutting a promo, and it was always a lot of fun with Biggie Biggs.
Yeah, he would cut a lot of times. He would cut promos on the fly. If a promo wasn't scheduled for him, he would still grab the mic and cut a good promo. And he's somebody that I always bounce my promo ideas off of him, and he would help refine a lot of those things very early on. So, I credit being trained the right way and through the right people. I'm very blessed for that, because unfortunately we had a lot of performers that have struggled in their careers coming up where they weren't necessarily trained by the right people, but I give them a lot of credit because they still kept forging forward, and still, were taking the opportunities to learn the craft the right way, and eventually became, great performers.
Let's backtrack a little bit back to your days in training. Who were some of the guys that you broke in with? Like, who were some of the guys that were in your class that like trained with you?
Yeah, so when I started out, the year after I started, Fred Rosser started at our school, who's formerly known as Darren Young. He started working with us as Bone Crusher Fred Sampson. And then also around that same time, referee Sean Bennett joined our school. He's now a referee and a backstage worker for WWE. And I believe around that same time, maybe a little after that, referee Danilo Amphibio started with us, who wrestled as Dangerous Dan on the Independents. He's now a referee for WWE as well. So they were three main guys that I broke in with. And then a couple of years later, Falaba joined our school, who, had a good run in Impact Wrestling, still travels all over and does the independents. And then Justin Carino and his brother Mark Carino started. They were recoined the New Heavenly Bodies by Dr. Tom Pritchard. They teamed for a while. So I trained with a lot of great guys, a lot of good journeymen that were with us that unfortunately didn't continue their careers, like Michael Blake, who was an early tag team partner of mine for a number of years, who was a great performer in his own right, but just decided that it was time to move on from the wrestling industry and focus on his real life and his family, which I totally respect. So those are some of the guys that I definitely came up with right from the very early beginning. And I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of us are still around today, is because those early days, just like I mentioned about the pandemic, we all pushed each other. It was that friendly competition, but we were all pushing each other because we all wanted to be the best that we could. And, I speak of my former partner, Michael Blake, we would kind of have this interesting rivalry that we never really knew that we had with one another, but there was just this burning confidence that in training, if he did a drill better than me, it would piss me off, and I would need to do that drill better than him the next time. If we were on a show working different opponents in singles or in different tags, if his match I felt was better than mine, it would piss me off, and I would have to have a better match than him. But it was that friendly rivalry, that friendly competition that we all pushed each other, and I think that's why, between the amount of shows that we all did and the amount of training that we had very early on, as I mentioned earlier, training 4 days a week, double sessions on Sundays, that's how we all got to be really good, really quick, because we were just consistently training.
Now, I know recently you've had a few matches working with AEW, and you've in the past have had a few matches with WWE. What is that experience like? You're kind of grounded in the indies, and you do work in a lot of different places. Again, working in Alaska is amazing to me, but having that opportunity to step to the door for the WWE or for AEW, one of the nationally recognized companies, what does that do for you as a performer? Beyond the paycheck, beyond everything else, just having that opportunity to say, "Yep, I did it. I was able to walk down that aisle and wrestle in a WWE ring or wrestle in an AEW ring. Is that a big confidence booster? Does that motivate you to do more, or is it just just justification, like an affirmation for you?
I think it's a little of both. I think on one end, it's great to have that affirmation. I mean, how many people, and I mean, you see how many independent performers are out there, and with very little spots. I mean, how many people can actually say that they've performed on a live event program for AEW, Impact, MLW, WWE, things of that nature? It's a great affirmation because it to me, it tells me that I'm still continuing to pay my dues. The one thing I do believe about pro wrestling is that you never stop paying your dues. There's ways to pay it in so many different ways, and I think that I have served so much to wrestling over the years that I've believed in myself and believed in my confidence that I could get there one day. And even if it was just a one-off, a one-shot, it's still a confidence booster for me. But it tells me that the right people were in my corner and they believed in me to give me those opportunities. So I would not have gotten there without the right people vouching for me. And those people did. They believed in my abilities, that I could go out there and fill that role for whatever was needed for that night. And whether it led to something or it didn't, it told me that, I belong. I belong in the world of professional wrestling, whether it's on the independents or with a national company. I've busted my butt and I belong here.
That's awesome. When it comes to getting these opportunities, does that help set you forward on the indies? Do people say, oh yeah, you had that match in WWE with Andrade and we would like to have you on our card? Or is it more like, yeah, we know what you do, we know what you're capable of, and here's your opportunity?
Yeah, I think it's more of the latter. I think it's more of, hey, we know your body of work, we know where you've been, we know what you've done, we'd love to have you on your card. I think if you're somebody that is consistently, doing actual work on those programs, it will get you to a certain degree, to a certain level. Like if you look at AEW during the pandemic era with, AEW Dark and how many opportunities it gave for so many independent wrestlers, some you saw literally on every AEW Dark, which I'm definitely sure it definitely helped them in their independent bookings. But I think in my case, only making a few appearances, my independent bookings have always come through hard work and through me reaching out and showing my body of work to that promotion, and having them say, hey, you know what, we like what your style is, we like what you do, we'd love to have you on a show. So I think on the former, does it help a little bit for some? I think it does in certain cases, but to me, it's in very small doses. I still think that you have to show your body of work, because anybody can get lucky and get an AEW opportunity or a WWE opportunity of doing extra work. But I think you still have to put your money where your mouth is and show people what you can actually showcase inside of the ring. We always talk about that in the industry. I think a lot of people talk about that. And I mentioned that earlier about being a fan of the Ultimate Warrior. His pageantry and everything was great, but when the bell rings, you've got to be able to produce. And I think that's what it comes down to when it comes to independent wrestlers gaining bookings. You have to be able to produce inside that ring.
One of the things as a fan that I got to do that not everyone was able to do is I was able to go to China to see Nick Aldis defend the 10 pounds of gold against Colt Boom Boom Cabana. And I went there with the idea that, I'd get an article published in PWI. So everyone called me the PWI reporter, even though that wasn't true. But it was such a cool experience. I know China is not Alaska, but it's something that I feel is very like a foreign concept, that pro wrestling in Alaska doesn't sound like a normal thing to me. I don't think I've ever seen a WWE card or WCW card in Alaska. Tell me about that, man. Getting an opportunity to work. Obviously, that's a different audience. It's an audience that I'm sure loved to see live pro wrestling, because it's not something that they get that often. Tell me about the experience with Wrestling Pro Alaska.
Yeah, it's an incredible experience. It was the brainchild of one of the guys that runs Wrestle Pro, which is the main promotion that I work for and the school that I teach at. And he loves traveling. He went to Alaska on vacation and saw that there was no wrestling there. And he came up with this concept of wanting to run an event in Alaska. And there was literally no wrestling in Alaska other than a small school that was there. And the opportunity came up. He created the idea, and he asked a certain number of individuals to go out there from WrestlePro, in addition to booking some names on the event, including, we spoke about him earlier, MJF was on that very first event in the main event. But it was incredible to go out there. I mean, one of the things that I have been very blessed about in my career is being able to travel and go to all these different places that I probably otherwise would have never gone to if I wasn't involved in the world of wrestling. And just to be able to go to Alaska one time is pretty surreal and incredible. I just, came back about, a month and a half ago from doing I think it's my 8th time going to Alaska.
Wow.
To do the shows for WrestlePro Alaska. And it's just incredible because we've watched from the very first show to now, the houses continuing to fill and fill and fill. And the small school that was there, I think now they have over 25 or 30 students. They're running their own events in Alaska every month. So, Kevin Matthews has done an incredible job of bringing wrestling to Alaska. And I know he's looking to the future of potentially bringing wrestling to other areas that don't have wrestling. So to be decided, I guess we'll call it that. But an incredible opportunity for me. And I'm very grateful that Kevin has, asked me to go out there this amount of times to perform. And, like we just said a few minutes ago, when it comes to getting booked, you have to produce inside the ring. And obviously Kevin believes in what I produce inside that ring is good enough to, be a part of those events.
I mean, just the visuals of seeing the talent in those rings, and it's a packed house, and it's not it's not a 100 or 200 type audience. It's like a full building. And I think that's really cool because again, at the end of the day, a wrestling fan wants to see live wrestling. That's the whole point of it. Watching it on TV is cool, but there's something to be said to be in that audience around other fans, other like-minded people, and watching this competition right there in front of them, as opposed to on the TV where it's very, very distant. This is very, it's like home, and being able to be around wrestling, I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, it is. And to be able to be on those events with some of the names that Kevin has brought in, guys like Jay Lethal have been out there, the BWO, Killer Cross, Scarlet. I mean, you name it. We're bringing some big names out there. And, this last round, we had Shawn Dean on the show from AEW, Sonny Kiss. So it's great to have a lot of these performers help us build these houses. So, again, it's an incredible opportunity. The views are absolutely insane. The food is incredible there in Alaska too. And there's a lot of good food out there, including reindeer sausage, which is incredible. So
I was going to say, you eating a lot of elk?
I haven't tried elk, but definitely had some reindeer sausage, and it was pretty delectable. So
I never thought about reindeer, but yeah, I'm sure that would be delicious. Thank you again for being so gracious to be on. I do want to ask you a little bit more, if I can just keep you for a few more minutes. But
Sure.
you mentioned a couple of times that you are also training talents these days, and that's at you said that was at WrestlePro. That's where you're training.
Yeah, it is. It's at WrestlePro. So it's kind of coined. There's two schools there. It's technically the parent name of the company is Creative Pro. And there's two schools. There is Creative Pro New York, which is out in Long Island. That's spearheaded by Brian Myers and obviously Pat Buck is the main owner. And then we have Creative Pro New Jersey. Again, Pat Buck is the head coach and owner of the school. Myself and LSG and another local gentleman by the name of Bobby Wayward are the coaches at that school. So I've been training and helping to train students at that school for the last, I mean, you can't include the pandemic. So I would probably say the last, 3 or 4 years I've been coaching now, and helping students. really start to own their craft and get out there and really not just teach them what I was taught, but also over the course of my career and my experience level, teach them what I wasn't taught. I want to make sure that, they always say leave something better than the way that you found it. And that's what I want to do for professional wrestling and guys coming into and girls coming into our school, is give them every tool, every fundamental to go out into the world of professional wrestling and succeed. And whether that's giving them the tools that I was originally taught, but also giving them the stuff that I wasn't taught, those backstage etiquette pieces that a lot of schools maybe don't teach, or just kind of having conversation with them and saying, hey, if you're ever in this situation, here's what you do, here's what you don't do, because I've been there, I've made those mistakes, or I've been around people to watch them make those mistakes. And it's like, okay, it's a mental note, never do this. And let me bring that to the forefront, with the guys and girls that are with us now. So, as I move, towards the back half of my career, that's something that I still want to continue doing when my days in the ring are done, is I still want to give back. I still want to coach, still want to teach, and still be a part of the industry any way that I can.
That's something you hear about a lot in wrestling today, is where some of the new kids on the block, if you will, are not receptive to the advice from veterans. Is that something that you have to deal with at Creative Pro, or is that a problem that's not really there?
I can say from a standpoint at Wrestle Pro, Creative Pro, we don't have that issue there. All of our students are very open and very receptive to the advice and the feedback. I think it happens more along or not when you're out on the independents. You may get some, and I've had this, and I understand people are on different, mental wavelengths and things of that nature. I haven't come across a lot of it. Most of the time, whether I've decided to watch a match without somebody asking me, just because I like watching the matches, or someone has asked me to watch their match, more times than not, the talent has always been very receptive to the feedback that I've given. I would say maybe only a handful of times have I ever had that, piece where somebody's asked me to watch their match, and as soon as I give them advice, I get the yeah, but, or well, I meant to do this, or things of that nature. So it hasn't happened very often. I've been, very blessed in terms of the fact that I haven't dealt with that very often. I'm sure maybe other veterans have dealt with that more than I have. But maybe it's also the way that I try to approach the feedback as well. I'm never going to completely tear somebody apart or tear their match apart. I'm going to, find the pieces that I think are the most important parts and deliver that message, but deliver it in a way that's not confrontational. I think that tends to happen sometimes when advice is given, not just in wrestling. I think in all matters of life, sometimes it's all about how you approach the situation. I tend to approach the situation in a very friendly manner. Hey, here's what I thought you guys did right. Here's what I thought could have been improved. And here's frankly what you did wrong that you need to correct. And I think it's all about how you deliver the message. If you come at anybody with any type of situation the wrong way, they're automatically going to get defensive. But if you come at it from a very, friendly perspective, and you come at it from a perspective, hey, I've been there, I've been through this, I think it helps that performer understand that they're still coming up to where they need to be, and this is the advice that's being given to help make them get better. It's not to tear them down, or it's not to say that their match was terrible. I think it's everything in life. It's all about how you deliver the message.
That's 100% agreed. We're going to wrap it up here. I do greatly appreciate your time today. Thank you so much for jumping on with us. I do know that I have your social medias here. I'm going to read those off again. And you're one of the smart ones, because you have your Shawn Donavan 01 is the user for Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. Makes it so much easier for fans to follow you if they can just type in one word, and it's there. It is. You're on Twitter, you're on Facebook, you're on Instagram, Shawn Donavan 01, and you have your Pro Wrestling Tees store at Shawn Donavan. Those links will be also in the video description, so that anyone can check them out, subscribe, follow, and all that good stuff. And you have a YouTube page too. Is that also? I lost the YouTube page.
I think it's just under Shawn Donavan. So
Okay, so there it is. So if anyone wants to get a hold of you, there's no excuse. We made it very perfectly clear. Links in the
You can find me
description.
on all platforms.
All platforms. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Go ahead. I'm looking forward to June 2nd. This hopefully is the first of many, many more matches down the road with you in the NWA. You and Dan Maff sent to slaughter. And again, thank you for your time. Best of luck. Oh, also, I know that you have some upcoming matches too. I want to pop those out too. I believe it's this Thursday in Union, New Jersey. You'll be taking on El Magnifico for Shotgun Thursday night, a Wrestle Pro event. You'll be again at the Crockett Cup on June 2nd and June 3rd. And then also July 22nd for Camp Chaos for Shore Star Wrestling in Hamilton, New Jersey. Did I miss any? Is there any dates that I don't have?
There may be some, but they're tentative right now. They haven't been confirmed, but I've got some stuff upcoming in June and July that have still yet to be confirmed. So I'll be getting back out there post injury and getting my calendar filled again.
That's awesome. Again, really appreciate your time. Not that I thought you'd be a bad guy or anything, but I really didn't know you before this interview, and I like you, man. I'm now you've got a fan in me. I'm rooting for you. So I hope everyone who's watching this feels the same way, and go out and support, subscribe, follow, like, all that good stuff on your social medias, and wishing you nothing but the best, especially on June 2nd.
Thank you very much. I appreciate having me. It was a fun conversation, and would love to talk shop again any day you want.
You got it. I'm going to keep you to that too. We'll touch bases soon. You have a good one, Shawn. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for checking out the pre-party, a presentation of Alliance-Wrestling.com. You should hit that subscribe button and join our community. I also want to remind you that we recap NWA POWERRR every Thursday at 8 p.m. in the live stream. We try to stay social, so find us at the Alliance blog. And until next time, we are the